to the official preamble. So.
Recording started.
And welcome to this Scrutiny Partnerships meeting, the first one that I've chaired, so this could be interesting. I just need to read this out first. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Please can those attending online switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure that there's no unnecessary background noise. Can I also remind members to ensure the chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on, something which I always fail to do. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting, whilst translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. As I said, I just want to welcome everybody first. I'm going to divert slightly from the agenda just very, very quickly, because this is the first meeting that I've chaired. I just want to put on record my thanks to the councillors who have been on this Scrutiny Committee before and have now left. Thanks for all the work they've done. And also welcome to new members on this committee. And thank you in advance for your diligence and work in holding Cabinet members, the council and our partners to account. I also want to thank the previous chair, Councillor Courtney, who set a very high bar for me to try and maintain in terms of her diligence and fairness and her conduct during the meetings. My sort of minimum aim, if you like, is to at least maintain those standards, but that'll be for others to judge. Well, I think this is in danger of turning into an Oscar acceptance speech. So before I start to thank my parents and the cat, we'll move on to the actual agenda itself. The first item on the agenda is apologies. Neil?
Councillor Whitehead, Chair.
Just Councillor Whitehead. Do we have any declarations of interest for tonight's or this evening's meeting?
Just say a declaration of interest.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hughes. Have we got any other declarations of interest online? Okay, thank you. So item 3 on the agenda is the Newport Live partnership. We're going to start off with a presentation. I'm not sure whether it's Kevin delivering this to start with. Both of you, is it? Right, okay. A team effort, followed by questioning from the committee. I believe the presentation itself is about 15-20 minutes with a slideshow to follow.
Some videos, Chair.
Some videos.
Just try and demonstrate some of the value that sits within the programmes that we deliver for the residents in the city.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'll pass over to you and thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So just to introduce ourselves, my name is Kevin Ward and I am the chair of the board of trustees and directors of Newport Live. I've been on the board since Newport Live's inception, originally on the shadow board in 2014, and then when we started operating in April 2015. And with me is Steve Ward, chief executive. We're not related, by the way, just in case people think we are. Are we starting this presentation now, Steve? Or?
Have you got it?
That's one of our colleagues online, Simon, will.
There we go. So I'm going to take you through a bit of the background very quickly, making the assumption that everybody's read the report. So we will talk through myself, the background. Steve will talk a little bit more detail, and then as Steve says, we've got some 2 or 3 videos at the end which really show the value that I think Newport Live provides to the city. So we can move on to the next slide, please. Oh, this is going to be like those COVID things, isn't it? Back in the day. I won't read all of that out, but just for background, we are now 9 years into our 25-year partnership agreement, which was established by Newport City Council. We're a not-for-profit company with charitable status, and we started operations in April 2015. And you'll see in those objectives, particularly the first one, the importance of sort of that social purpose that we have as an organisation. You know, we do provide gyms and swimming pools and those kind of things, but we're not, you know, we are a commercial operation, but we're not commercial operation in the way that you might have a Valentine's or a Yorkshire is, because we've got that social purpose as well. So move on very quickly to the next slide. Again, I won't read it all out, but these are our vision, our mission and our values. And that mission, inspiring people to be happier and healthier, you will find on all Newport Live branding. Next slide, please. So our governance, we have a board of 11 trustees, executive directors, 2 of whom are directly appointed by the council. At the moment, that's Councillor Forsey and Councillor Druitt. So that makes it can't be any more than 20% of the board. We have 3 sort of subcommittees that provide scrutiny and direction, both to the exec team and the board. So that's finance and HR, marketing and communications, and the arts advisory panel. The arts advisory panel is citywide, but it was set up by Newport Live, and it's there really to provide advice to us around arts and culture and what we're providing primarily through the Riverfront Theatre. And we report through to Tracy's department, so we sit within that economic development and regeneration department, and Steve and I provide regular briefings to the cabinet member who is now Councillor Porton. Those are the facilities that we run. The velodrome. Those of you who haven't seen, we have Team GB cyclists there over the next few days, warming up for the Olympics. We've got 2 open days, Friday and Monday, where it's free tickets to come in and see people in action who will undoubtedly be winning gold medals later on in the month, in August. We operate the swimming pool and tennis centre and Newport Stadium. Those are all on the international sports site. The Active Living Centre at Bettis, the Riverfront Theatre and Arts Centre, and then 2 facilities that are not part of the original agreement with the council. So Station Wellbeing Centre, which meant that we had a gym replacement for Newport Centre, and the Connect Centre, which was formerly known as Newport YMCA. So the next few slides just show you some pictures from those areas. The velodrome, which we renamed as the Great Thomas Velodrome a few years back after he won the Tour de France. The regional swimming pool. Again, some of the things, an awful lot of swimming lessons take place there, which is really a vital life skill. The tennis centre, again, highlighting in those images the diverse work that we do at the tennis centre. Newport Stadium, which for some years was quite underutilised. One of the challenges that I set Steve when I took over as chairman was to make sure we started sweating that asset a bit more. And I have to say, Steve and his team have done a fantastic job with that. So the stadium is now home to Newport City Football Club. Got promotion last year into the 2nd level of the Welsh Leagues. Newport Rugby Club is their home ground now. And as from the tail end of last season, Gwaley United, which is the women's football team. We've got real ambitions to make it into the top level of women's football. That plus called Newport Harriers Athletics, based there, of course. And the Active Living Centre, which is at Bettis and part of the Newport High School site. Station, which I mentioned earlier, which is next to the former Admiral building. That's a 15,000 square foot gym facility, and as Steve will talk to you about a bit later, incredibly well used since we opened it just over a year ago. The Connect Centre, which is the former Newport YMCA, that at the moment is being used as a school site, so we've kind of subleased that to the council for a period of time. Again, Steve will talk a bit more about that. And then finally, the Riverfront Theatre and Arts Centre, which hopefully lots of you came big splash at the weekend. Biggest free street theatre festival in Wales, and obviously we deliver a huge amount of work across the theatre and the arts centre there, from cinema to dance to DJ. So it's very popular and good venue. And then the next slide, which again I won't read through, just lists all of the services that we delivered during the last year, which is what we're here to talk about. And as you can see, a huge amount of work that Steve and his team deliver. And finally, from me, before I hand over to Steve, it's important to state that Newport Live is all about partnerships, and that slide gives you an idea of all the partners that we've worked with over the last year. Some of those are funding partners, some aren't, but without those partnerships, we wouldn't be able to deliver the kind of services that you will hear more about as we go through. With that, I think I'm massively ahead of time there, Steve. So there's your challenge. I'll hand over to Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Ward. Privileged to be the Chief Exec at Newport Live. Did have a previous life and history at the City of Newport, and had a service when the city were creating Newport Live. So poacher turned gamekeeper, gamekeeper turned poacher, I'm not sure. However, in the spirit of delivering public service, I know both sides of the coin. So I just wanted to share with you a few headlines. All of this information is detailed in the report, so rather than go line by line in the report, it's there. If you saw last year's report, we've actually condensed our workforce a little this year down to 423 actual colleagues in varying positions. Some people hold multiple positions with us part-time. Service, you can see some points on the slide there. We are still upholding the local government pension scheme, and as was provided within our funding and management agreement, Newport Live have upheld living wage foundation not only to the people who transferred via 2P, but also any new people joining the organisation. So there isn't a two-tier effect within our trust, which very much has been our leadership, but it's been governed and protected also by the Newport Live Board. I think the final stat there is just looking ahead and looking back. So in this year, we'll be about 6.6 million on salaries, started at 3.9. That gives a context of where salaries have gone over that 9 years. Big effect of living wage and the number of colleagues that we have in that sector of the business and the impact. If I may move on to theatre performance, that says a lot on the tin about how we've changed behaviours and programming this year. Without going into the detail, that's a massive increase in performance types and ultimately getting local people in through the doors of that asset that we have for the city. If we move on to the next slide, please. You'll see information around the sport and leisure area. There's a story behind some of those headlines where the Newport Centre closed and station facility opened. So our physical activity participation actually increased. Individual activity increased, but our spectators at events went up with more stadium use. But our non-physical activity you still used to capture for meetings and room hires and exhibitions. That's the rationale for why that would reduce, because the assets, the availability that we have then isn't there. We've gone to individual participation and well-being. Overall, there's some good growth in terms of participation, which has come through primarily the facilities. How does that translate into financial performance? Well, if I take you straight to the bottom on total income, it looks like we've reduced 5.9% down at 8.9 million. However, our operating income, earned income, has increased by nearly 8%, and there was a significant reduction in grant income during the year. So you can see the magnitude of losing or was 1.2 million coming through at that point. And City Council took a decision, and you could say rightfully, to reduce that management fee by 10%. So the impact of doing that then is, the counter to that is increasing fees and charges, and then increasing volume, increasing occupation of facilities to balance that budget, which then gives us the financial reserves that you will see, in keeping with guidance from the Charities Commission, which effectively is good governance would give you 3 months worth of salary to ride cash flow challenges. And you never know, there could always be a pandemic in the future. Hopefully not, but the resilience of the organisation, and the committee won't be aware that Newport Light was created by the City of Newport, with cash flow from a management fee, but there were no reserves at the outset. So that's what's being generated over the course of 9 years. And the key point at the top, that there is an option. So if Newport Light creates a surplus in its trading, the option there is for Newport City Council to call that in and retain 50% of that. So whatever Newport Light goes and does in the future, if it sets up 2 new organisations or operations to the left and the right, anything within that group would give 50% of any surplus back to the City Council. So it's set up in a robust manner to ensure that things don't leak away, which isn't necessarily the case in lots of trusts around the country. So it's there for the purposes, the right purposes for the City of Newport. The next slide just demonstrated some information from the report on capital investment. It wasn't a huge sum in the last year, but we massively benefited from some grant funding to de-risk our provision within station. You'll see in a moment the impact of investment funding into the Riverfront Theatre and Arts Centre, and critically some investment into the Newport International Sports Village. Some of that was technically responsibility of Newport City Council, but we respect the council have got challenging times. There's still 105k going in from CS, corporate asset maintenance funding. But the Newport Light board then determined that we could invest into match funding to get funds from Sport Wales, as an example, and resurface the tennis courts, which then gives us a return on the other side. Moving on to carbon reduction, just a light slide this year. Lots of EV chargers now at the Sports Village, which later in the year will result in a big EV open day in October. But most importantly is when you see some of the numbers that are now starting to come through in reducing energy usage in some of the highest carbon intensive buildings that the City Council owns, that we're privileged to lease on that 25-year contract. You can see air source heat pumps were installed at the Regional Pool and Tennis Centre, and it drops gas usage by 20%. And the Riverfront Theatre, with a major lighting infrastructure investment, in the 2 months that we had it in, there was a 10% reduction in the annual electricity use. So hopefully this year you'll see that reduced down significantly further. And Chair, that brings us really to some highlights as to where we are. And I know we're looking back. I think it is key for us also to give you confidence in we continue to look forward. The board are looking at the creation of the 5-year strategy, which aligns with both the cultural strategy and the sporting strategy for the city, which links down to asset management, asset maintenance, and meeting supply and demand as the city continues to grow. There are a number of key elements, I think, on this slide, and the last ones I would point out are very much aligned to the city's strategic plans with carbon reduction, energy efficiency, growth, economic development, using culture and events for social purpose, but also for economic benefit. And just making sure that we leverage the partnership that we have with the city, whether that be bringing in external funding into the city and the value that the charity that Newport Live then has, that sometimes the authority can't access, and vice versa. Many things that we can't access that the council actually can. And just making sure that this model is very much still working, and for us to play a role in supporting the council to discharge their responsibilities under the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act. That really is kind of a very summary of what we included in the report. And what I'd like to do now is hand back to our chair to actually share with the committee some of the meaningful activities that we've delivered, not what's in the facilities themselves per se, but I'm sure our chair will explain to you some of the programs that we've delivered in the year.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, all I've got to say really on this, Chair, is that we're going to show you a couple of 3 videos, or 4 videos. And people often ask me, some of our other volunteers, why do you do that? So, and these videos show you the answer to that. They show you the stuff that a lot of people don't see, but the people that do see it, the benefit that they derive from it is enormous. So you'll see a video about the Lunar New Year event, and kudos to Steve and his team who delivered that in about 5 weeks' notice. You'll see a bit about how we deal with well-being, not just for those people who need help, but also make sure that there's a prevention strategy there, and prevention in terms of health is going to be so important as we move forward. And you will also see a video about our Positive Futures programme. Positive Futures is something that we inherited from the City Council. It's funded now by the Police and Crime Commissioner, but that's about getting hold of young people who are on the verge of getting swallowed up by the criminal justice system, and using sport and leisure to really engage them. And finally, we took over last year the Alternative Education Programme, which is now called Aspire. I was privileged to go to their sort of end of year celebration, and the impact that has had on those kids, you'll see in the final video, and it's really affecting. But that, back in the day, we used to talk about sending kids to the unit. Well, talking about naughty kids, but that's what this is about. This is about kids who struggle in mainstream education, but actually, if you can engage with them properly, they've got an awful lot to give. So I'm handing back to you, Steve, on the mechanics of actually getting the videos.
That's the magic button.
So on a Saturday, the 10th of February, we hosted the Lunar New Year celebrations at the riverfront. It was the first time for Newport that event has happened on that scale. We were so happy to have, been invited to facilitate the event, so working obviously with Newport City Council, but it was more about the engagement with the Chinese community. So we had a procession that started within the city centre and led through the high street, right the way around the city, onto the riverfront, and then came to the Riverfront Theatre and Arts Centre, where we launched a whole host of workshops and activities, performances and events throughout the day. It was actually bigger than we anticipated. We had hundreds within the procession, packed with people. We had a Principality Dragon, and we had dragons from Hamadras, the creative arts company that we work with, and then we had the lion dancers. Every Lunar New Year event and celebration has to start by being blessed by lion dancers. So we were really lucky to have such a great company come along and work with us. They really made the procession. You could feel the celebration of the event as you're going down the streets. And even if people didn't know what was happening, people just came along on the journey, really. I think it was really significant as well for the Newport Chinese Community Centre. Some people are still isolating within that community. There's still quite a lot of people who feel quite kind of scared and a bit isolated from life, really, still. So to have something that's so celebratory across communities was a really touching thing for the community members to see. To do something like that event, for hundreds of people to come along from the breadth of the communities, there's such a positive attitude. Newport has got loads of exciting things happening. It is full of life.
The next video, Chair, is a scheme that is in partnership with the NHS and approved by physiotherapists. So it's a very much a prevention and wellbeing support programme. Just a snippet to give you that person's view on the day. No script.
I'm Eileen Spate. I'm 75 and I wouldn't like to go into a care home or anything like that. So that's why I aim to be as active as I possibly can be. And I keep active by obviously doing the housework and the garden and obviously doing this Good Boost programme twice a week. Well, I'm able to do things that without it I wouldn't be able to do. The exercises have helped me become more subtle, more mobile, and I certainly notice if I miss them. Well, I feel good. I feel really good after a session. It boosts you. You have a bit of a chat with the other participants, and when you come out, you just feel really buoyed up. Yeah.
The next video is our Positive Futures programme, and this is a new video, literally produced off the table on Friday night last week, which reflects a programme that is live, was live at the end of the year, I should say. Recognise the community
A lot of young people don't feel heard, don't feel like they've been listened to. We're seeing extreme poverty, we're seeing extreme vulnerability, extreme exploitation. To be able to communicate well, there's a genuine acknowledgement that those young people may have had a really difficult start to life. We have to be that safe space and that we're putting our arm around you and saying we hear you. Tell us about it because we'll be able to help you.
It's a challenging job, but we have that freedom to listen to them and let them lead, and it works.
What a ball that was, but okay, I see you. Those dance moves are class.
Red Bull, we're on the red deck, we're flying. Oh, hang on, I thought you wanted the hot seat. Tonight, what we do, the first hour of this session, it's just a community session because a lot of these young people live on their own. A lot of these young lads are prime for exploitation. It's just important to get them out, get them socialising, like making contacts, making new friends. We've got so many different nationalities in one room, but it's fantastic.
That's posted into us. Youth Justice Workers.
It's so universal because it's not letters, it's dots, it's symbols. Everybody understands that that's a 3 and that's a 6, and it's about matching. So you'll have Sudanese young people teaching Afghanistani young people and Syrian young people how to play dominoes. And that's something they hadn't tried before. And, you know, it just brings everybody together. And that's what this is about. And the Gap Centre very kindly provide the young people with food. Right? And then we've got football at 6 o'clock, which is absolutely phenomenal.
We want them to belong to us. We don't want them to belong to the exploiters, to the people that are going to mistreat them.
There's a lot of young people that don't have what is the normal family anymore. It's trying to figure out when they come to you with a problem, especially if they don't speak English, it's understanding what has happened, why they're upset. You're there to listen, to empathise, and then problem solve.
When he first came, he asked about joining the football team. I said, I need to see you being consistent and getting better English, which he has actually done. And he volunteers every Monday reliably. He's here every Thursday reliably. So I said was support.
We can work it out.
Which, if we can work something out between us, because he gets on with other people across.
I've seen it, yeah.
And he volunteers every Monday fixing bikes.
He's a good footballer as well.
Okay, just step by step. Okay.
Oh, I didn't show you, did I?
Oh, the BMX. Do you remember the boy who came for a bike with Matt?
But he had a really bad time in school on a Monday morning. We picked him up, went home, got his bike, took him to Triga Park, and this was the result afterwards. So that is down to you guys, so thank you.
A lot of them do expect us to just be like, I can't be bothered. Having that chat allows them to sort of just regulate their emotions and understand that you're not there to intimidate them. It's us trying to understand them.
It's not often when you're nearly 56 years old you get called cool. Yeah?
You been boxing this week, big man?
No, it's my hands.
Are you using the glove? Did you find a missing glove?
Still can't find it.
You know, your hands are sore.
Yeah, I know, but I'll find them tonight. I actually am going to find them tonight.
You
So
are
I'm going
going?
early.
Yeah.
I'm going at like 6.
But if you are struggling, give us a shout and we'll get some, all right? Yeah? All right? Because your hands do look sore, mate. And I know you like your boxing.
Yeah, you're missing out the thing that you love the most.
So when you're fighting in Madison Square Gardens, world title, Miles to Jack Daniels.
We're not their parents either. Do you know what I mean? That chance for them to just behave silly with us, they just let themselves go, because a lot of them, they will be going through stuff.
We're always trying to aspire, we're always trying to say, no, there is opportunities for you, and often we can be that opportunity, whether they come and volunteer or work with us. We want to be that place where we get smiles on faces, because life can be pretty grim.
You putting your energy, effort, thoughts, passions, everything you're being passionate about right now is so important. So first of all, I'm not going boxing. Why am I going boxing? Because my hands are hurting. What am I going to do? Solve the problem. Sort the hands out.
Guess what we're down to do in April, I think it is?
Oh yeah.
What?
Boxing coaching.
Are you actually?
Yeah.
Why?
I wonder if Martin going now. You'll be 16.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Want to come on in with us?
I actually will. No, I'm not even lying.
Coach people up with boxing?
No, I actually will.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, seriously, I will.
Me and Matt can do that. You can just come on with us.
Yeah, I'll do
The
it.
staff.
Yeah, no, I'll do it.
And then you could do boxing sessions with some of the younger kids.
Yeah, no, that's a sick idea. No, I'm down for that, 100%.
You can almost see like the weight coming off their shoulders.
We've got staff who are actively asking young people, how do you feel? What does this mean to you? How do you feel in your community? Do you feel safe? What would make the difference? And they know that there's no judgment, but actually if the wheels were coming off, they do say, I need to speak to you, this is happening. Capturing that voice of that child is critical for us.
With our referrals, especially in the van, is the perfect opportunity to speak to them.
Like when I tell people I want to become a heavyweight champion, they just laugh, innit? These guys did it.
We believe it. Yeah. We want to do what we can to help you achieve that. Your goal automatically becomes our goal.
Yeah.
You know, we're in your corner on the world title fight. Yeah. The moment you've knocked the chap down, we're corner.
Am I doing the whip in the towel one?
Yeah.
Just two and Dad.
Yeah. The world's your oyster.
Yeah, no.
I think the communication skills have got to be spot on, otherwise we wouldn't get the relationships we do build.
It's taking them down, getting to their level, sitting on the floor with them, side by side, so you're not in front, so they don't feel intimidated.
That whole listening to their voice is pivotal of everything. So when we meet as a team, it's the young person has said this is how they're feeling, this is what that meant to them.
It's like we're walking with them, not against them. So to have someone next to them by their side, it's like, oh, okay, we're a pair here, we can work together. It's so powerful.
That's a community intervention focused on a young person. There are a large number of young people. It's not a mass participation programme, but it can have a big impact in terms of engagement, communities, as you saw on there. And there are many, many young people who are coming to those sessions who are also turning up for food on a Thursday night at Thursday night in England at the moment. They're turning up and they're getting a meal, and then they participate in physical activity and rule and values and the culture that we try and elicit. And you saw there, subtly they try and turn people into the coaches and community leaders of the future, so they can use something that they like to engage. And then finally, Chair, we have the programme. We wanted to share this with you because we were asked to step in by Newport City Council, both with the Education Department and Youth Service, to see where we could take Aspire, through consistency of delivery and using some of the products that we have, partnership, and also the platform to try and make a difference. So our final video of the evening is our Aspire programme.
The main school didn't work for me because there was too many rules, and I didn't really feel comfortable with listening to all them rules.
School didn't work out for me as there were too many people and they weren't very helpful.
Because it was really crowded and there was a lot of people over in this worry compared to over in Aspire.
And every time a teacher told me what to do, I struggled to listen to their instruction. So I felt like Aspire was a much better place for me.
I like the fact that teachers treat us like young adults and not kids. Like, they give us the respect that we need and then we give them respect.
I've really enjoyed the cooking over in Aspire.
The sports activities and the cooking.
Yeah, cooking, yeah. We done with the fajitas, we cooked chicken.
Yeah, the trips. I like the trips and the cooking especially. The fire station trip.
Same again, it's just less people, more relaxed, and then it's just less crowded in there.
We do 2 lessons a day. We wear our own uniforms in here.
And we just do the courses that we need instead of all the extra courses. So we get the GCSEs that we need, and then we can go college.
In fact, we get breakfast in the morning. Yeah.
I say when we do a lesson where we have to do something hands-on, you get me? Like we have to make something or create something.
It's a lot better than school because there's less people and it's more easier to settle down and get into the work.
There are less people, so the teachers can focus on your problems as much as others.
Because you can speak to the staff as well about problems and everything. I just feel like they're more helpful and understanding.
And it's just a lot easier than school. It's more calm. It's there's not that many people.
Because I find it hard to cope when there's loads of people around me in a lesson, and it's just so much calmer than a normal school.
And here we got plenty of breaks, so yeah.
I think Aspire's better than school because we get more breaks, the teachers are more respected and they're easier to talk to.
And it's made me more open, so I talk to people more. Helped me finish a lot of work I probably wouldn't have done.
It helped me gain my confidence and learn more, really.
Aspire's got me on the right track. It's got me, I'm predicted to get 15 GCSEs, which is quite mad. I didn't expect to get that.
But Aspire's prepped me to wake up at 9:30 in the morning every day to go to Newport Youth Academy.
They helped me fill in my CV as well for work and stuff. They put down my predicted grades. It's a really good place to be. The staff are lovely. They're always helpful.
I would tell people it's a good place.
Take it like it's a normal school, but it's not. Don't do the same mistake as me and go back to school in year 11. Absolutely. No, hated it.
Stay in Aspire?
Yeah. If I could have one more year, it'd be absolutely class. It would. Any more questions?
We always say that Aspire is a family. So it's just being that safe space, the constant in their life, because I think a lot of the young people who access Aspire don't have that in their lives.
Aspire is just praise. It is that constant, you've done really well.
School just might not be for them. I mean, we talk about the fact that there's millions of different jobs out there to suit your abilities and your needs and what you need as a person, but there's only one education system.
Aspire is that bespoke package for those young people.
We all put the young people first. It is all about the young people. It's them.
So Aspire is an alternative education placement. All the young people that we get on the programme for the different sites come with a variety of backgrounds. I mean, they're very stereotyped. They're very much, these are the naughty kids. And that's not what this is. It isn't for naughty kids. It's for someone who is struggling in mainstream education. Education's not for everyone. I struggled. And I think 90% of the staff that we've got have struggled in some way. And it's not just behaviour that we have, it is all various reasons. Everyone's got a story. It's understanding what didn't work in school, and it's understanding why they struggled, why. So it could be various reasons, such as they don't like big groups, they don't like the structure, they don't like the way they have to conform to the rules. The teacher's approach often is quite difficult, they don't have relationships.
The staff work really hard to engage the young people and think, how do we build this relationship? We've got to be here, the young people have got to be here. How do we make this the best possible place for them? We've got schools that have bought into us, so schools put their trust in us. You've got parents who want to put their trust in us, and we've got young people that rely on us.
We can contact the police, we can contact the youth justice system, we can contact drug and alcohol support. We work really closely with the school to ensure that that education is 100%. We know that we can't do that without these guys. That's what makes Aspire, is because we're able to use everybody around us to support these young people. We all have the same goal.
It's an army of people that is going to make changes in this young person's life, and we need all of that.
So we had one young person whose attendance when they came from school was like 4%. When she started, she was quite shy, reserved, but she started to do the wellbeing sessions and the talking with the staff. She just absolutely thrived. She absolutely blossomed. So much that the school offered her to go back into school, but she refused and said she wanted to stay. And she stayed, and she ended up joining the emergency services, and she's doing so well.
As long as we don't give up on them, they don't give up on themselves.
It's a chance for them to build and just to develop whatever step that they need to get to for their future.
I've got a student at the moment who has missed a lot of education, and there's a huge language barrier. So for him, his end goal is simply feeling more confident using English and getting some work experience. That's his end goal. And then I've got another student who is extremely bright, and she's so capable and lovely. So for her end goal is work on your mental health, work on your confidence, and get into college on a level 2 course. We have to treat them as individuals. There's no, right, this group I'm going to get to this point, because it's not doable. That's a mainstream education approach. That's not our approach.
I think achievements for young people doesn't have to be, the academic of reaching college, reaching, whatever limit that they feel that they need to meet. Some of these young people, their attendance is 4 or 5% in school, and get to us and have reached 80, 90%, and their well-being is massively increased. So I think that's a winner for that young person in itself. So we've got to turn up every day and give our best for these young people to make complete differences in their lives, for them to be enabled to go and make those changes themselves.
I hope it grows. I really hope it grows. There is so many young people that need this service. We've got one young person in particular upstairs that they're involved in antisocial behaviours in the community. They come to Aspire, that they're starting to understand you don't need to. That's not going to be there forever. We need to look at an alternative. We need to get you ready for adult life.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I think you can see from that video that where our chair talked about our vision really of inspiring people to be happier and healthier, picking up that challenge, whether it be now around preventions. 1 minute we're working with world-class athletes who've landed literally in our velodrome this afternoon, participation, well-being, performance, the arts, culture. It's quite a diverse business mix that someone decided to put into leisure and culture in the city. That can be challenging, but it can also be a huge strength. So I think we wanted to show some of that isn't just health and fitness, swimming, cycling, well-being, number of people who bought tickets and come through. There's a lot of other services that actually make a big difference in the wider communities that we serve. And I think that's a strength that Newport Life tries to offer back to the city, directly. That we report through to Tracy's department, but also into many other, working with Caroline's team behind us, whether it's working in education, all of the different departments we're working with, whether it's children with disability, etc., young kids. So on that note, Chair, I think that's our presentation concluded. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. To quote one of our young people on the SNI programme, any more questions?
Only that's going to be. Tracy, do you want to say anything at this point? Or you...
That's the thing I follow that, to be honest. I think, patients will give a bit of a video something really passionate and part of it in terms of the impact that what Newport Life do to our community, and it's across all age groups and all demographics. It's leisure and sport and just that engagement is really important. And I think the report you've got, which obviously focuses on the performance last year, sort of evidence is really happening.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, as Chair, I was really looking forward to this being my first one because I just knew this was going to be a positive report. I've got to say, as somebody that used to be a mainstream school teacher and then moved into communities first, and now I work in children's residential care, the Aspire and the Positive Futures really resonates in the sense that I remember when I was a mainstream teacher, it was very much a case of me telling the children what I thought they needed and what they wanted and me delivering it to them. Whereas that and what I do now is much more finding out what they need and being on their level, as I said in the video, going to their level and finding out what they need and delivering what they need. Really positive. But of course, our job is to scrutinise. So absolutely. I will open the floor to questions now. I mean, Paul, I know you had a couple of questions. Do you want to kick off with yours? I can't see any hands online at the moment, so I can now, but I will do that in a moment. But yeah, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, yeah, thank you for that presentation.
Sorry, Councillor Bright, I should be a bit more fluent.
It's my job. Thank you, Chair. Well, yeah, so thank you for the presentation. It's no question it's such a broad umbrella cover for the services, and I just want to pick up a couple of things really. Just come through. I mean, it's exciting that we've got Team GB coming to Wales again, not to Newport to train. They're here because of our fantastic services, and it's great. I just wondered, you work in partnerships, and obviously Visit Wales, we're based on delivery for Newport. I just wondered how you work with Visit Wales and how you promote that particular facility, which is on your website, it's on your app. But I'm going to work with organisations like Visit Wales, and building back up Visit Wales, they launch their next year's strategy twice over. I just wonder how you're building the Welsh language into services you provide, English, incidental Welsh when it comes to the field. I just wonder how you're building in the Welsh language into your delivery.
Thank you. Firstly, Visit Wales specifically, we work with them. I wouldn't say they are someone we work with day to day, but a number of their partners. So if we use the training camp for Team GB, that's a relatively simple formula. They come to Newport, call it the Newport effect, because they get a medal effect. They come because of our location. city. Traditionally, we're the closest velodrome to Heathrow, which will get them on a flight anywhere across the world. They'll come for this reason and stay in a 5-star resort. They go out on the roads and they train on the flat, they can go on the hills, but they can train in a world-class velodrome where we make them feel special. Monday night, we put tickets on sale for the public. When they agreed to do an opening day, it was sold within an hour. So there is a demand. Our velodrome's 500 seats. We struggle to get major events because the economic drivers require you to pay TV rights and other rights. So you can often not bring that money back in through 500 seats. But what we've worked with is Welsh Government's major events unit, and then they work with Visit Wales, etc. So those partnerships then unfold. And we did one during the year, Cymru, as referenced in there, Cymru Velo Cup, which was the 25-year anniversary of the velodrome. So there is work there. Some of our challenges are around the magnitude of facilities, world-class training, not quite big enough to host the biggest international competitions, but of international significance. Same in stadium to a degree, same with our tennis centre. We've got the best short course swimming pool in Wales, 650 seats, no one else has got one. It can do short course events, the biggest events are 50 metres. So we'll get 10, 11, and it'll bring people in on a regional level, not quite on a national level. Picking up Welsh language, we do a lot of performances and a lot of work in and around the Bridgefront Theatre. Particular strands, particular work, programming in the medium of Welsh, and also then delivering, we've got coaches who are now delivering tennis, but swimming lessons we offer in the medium of Welsh. We'll often challenge to identify people whose first language or are confident in delivering a sporting session in Welsh. Even if it's their first language, often when they play through the medium of English. And they say to us, well, we can speak Welsh, I'd rather coach in English, but actually we need to offer those services. So we do offer services where we possibly can. Our aquatics manager at the moment, Welsh is his first language. So naturally, we try to leverage that in all of our recruitment and training.
Thanks. Sorry, I mentioned Welsh language. I wasn't make stuff clear really. I wasn't looking for delivery through the language through Welsh. Like the use of incidental Welsh, and just anyone that comes to the knowledge centres like Croesford or Agar, is built on the back because that's next year's Visit Wales big pitch, the Croesford effect. So I just wondered, day-to-day language, is there any use of incidental Welsh, and how is encouraging that, just to build on that?
There is incidental Welsh used. I would say it's not at the forefront of everything we do. If you look at our marketing and materials that we put into the public domain, all of that is Welsh first. So where we work in partnership, we deliver services on behalf of the authority. There we have an obligation, and we have the opportunity to uphold that in region Welsh. Our colleagues will always answer for. They will take that into our customer service team, and they will start those conversations in Welsh. So that's.
Thank you. Deal.
Councillor Davis.
Hi, I've got a couple of observations and a couple of questions, if that's okay, Chair. The observations I want to make is the presentation was absolutely brilliant. And I've got to admit, the last two videos you show were very emotive. Because obviously a lot of work go in with the children, and there's a lot of understanding of the children's needs, and that, I have to admit, has to be applauded. There is so many young children in Newport that are vulnerable to, like you said in the videos, to end up being persuaded to join gangs and everything like that. And by having somewhere where they can go, where they can express those feelings, use that energy. And I think the problem with children joining gangs is the fact that they don't feel that they belong anywhere. They don't feel that they belong at home or at school. Whereas what you're doing is moving them along and showing them that they can belong somewhere, which they don't need to join those gangs. They have somewhere to belong. So I have to commend you on that. And another thing as well is I like the idea in your report you say about activities just for women, because I find there's a lot of women that are afraid to join in activities where men are there as well. So I applaud you on that. The two questions I have are with your Aspire group. How are children referred to you to attend that? Are they referred from school? Are they referred from social services, or are they referred through other methods?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Principally, they're referred from the school. So Aspire at the moment is a partnership with 3 high schools: Llanwern, Liswery, and John Frost. So they're the schools that are partnering, and they identify the young people who mainstream education isn't working for them, and there's an opportunity for them. So that's where that referral comes in. Often there are other services who are working with that young person or with their families, and that insight, information, sometimes intelligence, then comes not only through Aspire, but our Positive Futures programme have got insight and information on some of those young people who are referred in, because our Positive Futures programme has also got intelligence coming in from different sources. So we're able then to shape a programme around those young people and be aware of their needs and the support that they require.
Is it? That's great, thank you. I mean, so you work with 3 schools. Are you hoping to roll that out amongst other secondary schools, or is it because of resources you're limited to the 3?
Very good point. It's limited to resources. I think the 3 schools have worked with your Director of Education, Sarah Morgan's team, to say we're invested into this model. The other schools have an opportunity to engage and join with that, and we hope that when we showcase some of the outcomes, it may be of interest to those schools to, either allow Aspire to grow further or adopt their own version. And maybe they do have their own versions of it, but what we know was we were asked to step into this space and make sure that those young people are the hub of what we deliver, rather than they happen to be there and we'll provide staff who are available to work there. So we've made sure there's a dedicated team. We've made sure that they are consistent around those young people, because those relationships we think have made a really big difference to those young people. And it's also made a massive impact on our workforce as well. They've benefited, I'd say, almost as much as what the young people have.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I'd have to congratulate you and your team for a job very well done there. The last question I've got is a bit of a mundane question. I noticed in the report where you set out the expenditure and your income, and I noticed that there's a very large deficit on what your surplus expenses to 2024-25 compared to what it was in 22-23. I think it's on page 29 of your report, and I wondered why there was such a big drop.
Sorry, let me get to page 29. It's on the corner of the report. I've got that one. So is that the £40,000 variance?
Yeah.
So what that is demonstrating is effectively what our outturn was at the end of the year. So you can see where the variances are in those columns against the sorry, that's pitching 23-24 versus 24-25. So showing the differences. So if I took you to salaries and wages, councillor, you can see the impact, for example, of 10% increase in living wage has a massive impact on our payroll. And then, you know, inflationary cost pressures are why it's driving those costs. On the counter of that, you'll see where we've made additional income lines to balance the budget. So top line, sport and leisure, forecast this year 3.88 million. 23-24 was 3.4 million. So that's the rationale. It's seeking to balance a budget, and that's just the difference in the years that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Davis. The next person I can see that's indicated is Councillor Screen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just an observation and a question. First of all, you know, a lot of admiration for all the work you're doing with young people, and a lot of admiration for the staff. You know, the work that they put in, which may be a very challenging, you know, situation that they're in. You know, it's amazing the sorts of things that you are engaged in. So, you know, and I think it's a big thank you there. You know, we're trying to stop young people going into antisocial behaviour and so on as they grow up. Just a quick question. I noticed that in Newport West, particularly in the Dufferin area, there doesn't seem to be any real facilities available. They seem to be concentrated in the centre and in the east. You know, and there is, you know, a big area in Dufferin, particularly of disadvantaged children, but there doesn't seem to be any local facilities. I mean, is that something that you could perhaps look at in the future?
Thanks, Councillor Screen. I think probably the obvious answer to that is the facilities that we operate are those owned by the council that we inherited from the council. And I suppose the answer to your question, I hope, will be contained within the council's new sporting strategy. And obviously that's in the process of happening. So I think as the operator of facilities, that's quite a different one for us to answer, although it is worth saying that in the Dufferin area, you've obviously got John Frost School, which has got sporting facilities that are open to them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Screen. Councillor Hughes, and then I'll go to Councillor Hussain online.
I think I'll start by officially just saying thanks for the kindness and support you gave me on the board. You can pass that on to the trustees as well. And it's quite nice of them being on the other side. I think when you read a report, very often when you see people come to Scrutiny, you wonder, is it quite like that on the other side of the fence? You know, and I'm really, you know, I know really that the staff that you've got and yourselves are incredibly passionate and dedicated about the job you do. And that, you know, the other thing that I think a lot of people miss is it's not just about Newport Live. I know you're very passionate advocates for the council in Newport as well, and I hear that all from yourselves. So, you know, I'm very grateful for that. And I think the other thing as well that I think people miss that we've picked up today, I think, is, you know, when I first sort of started getting involved with Newport Live, it was very much about, you know, running some sort of sports committee, and it's so much more. It's, you know, you've got your fingers in so many pies, really, and I'm glad that you know, even the representation of officers behind today reflects that, in the sense that, you know, that there's more to do, we know, and that's going to be a huge growing sector in relation to how we work with health and social care. You know, we know we've got a huge issue with diabetes and weight gain, all sorts of issues where I think sports will play a huge and very important part in that, and it's started to do so. So I think, you know, that's the recognition I think that you deserve, really, what you bring to Newport. That very few people see the scope and the scale of the things you do. I know that you're always looking for new angles and always looking to sort of how can we spread that net, which is really passionate. And I think the other thing people forget as well is the significant challenging period that you've just come through. You know, in the sense of very much mirroring what the council has gone through with pensions, with wage increases, with inflation costs and all that stuff. So you're very much mirroring the problems. For me, certainly, I think it's one of the most important partnerships that the council has, and the most value that I think that the council has as well. I think, you know, because of that intersection between different parts of the council. So I think one of the things I was picking up in the report, I think, is I hope Councillor Phil Horan doesn't mind me sort of quoting him, but I think he said in another meeting the other week that you can build anything out of anything, and as long as you maintain it and maintain that infrastructure, then it'll last for 100 years. And I think one of the things that I just like a little bit more reassurance about, really, and just maybe a heads up for the future, I think, is the infrastructure side of our commitment to yourselves seemed, to me certainly, a bit low. And I think it feels a little bit responsive to when things actually go wrong, so replacing roads for me, you know. And I think one of the parts about infrastructure for me is that if you don't keep on top of the smaller things of infrastructure, then they tend to come back and bite you later on. And so it's just and I'm not expecting an answer from you, David. That's something to look into the future. Just make sure that we're on that figure, and that's the right figure in relation to infrastructure costs. And I'm certainly not expecting them to come back. But it's just a warning, really, in relation to what goes on in Southern authorities, maybe. And I think you know, that whole finance thing is going to be worrying for a few years to come, I think, as well. I mean, you know, those concessionary figures are going to probably rise in the short term, roughly, while poverty sort of increases. I know you work really hard to not pass those costs on, but I think there will be a point where that has to be discussed. I think that's needs to be accepted, I think. So I think, you know, that's my biggest fear, really, is around those financial sustainability sort of issues. As any company would have, the council would be having exactly the same discussions. And I think, you know, and also the pressures that those challenges pose to any sort of partnerships. I think, you know, you're both essentially working, you know, two separate entities in that sense, but very much a common entity as well. So I really, yeah. And in any agency, we see it across the board. I saw it in health, I saw it in lots and lots of social, you know, that while we go through extreme challenges, it's about maintaining the sanctity of that relationship. And I think, you know, we've got fantastic officers, we've got a fantastic group of people in Newport, and I just sort of, you know, just that awareness of protecting the sanctity and the sort of special relationship we have there. I think it's something very, very special. And I think the people in Newport really, really gain from it as well. I think that's the part that the overall is, you know, it's great having a partnership and it's great having an agency, but what's the payback to the city? And I think the payback from the city is phenomenal. I think that's one of the most important partnerships. Well, they're really great. Really enjoy reading.
I mean, is there any, do you want to respond to that anyway, or?
I think, I guess from a partnership point of view, that relationship between us and the local authority, you know, my view has always been that it has to be one where, you know, from time to time we act as critical friends on both sides, but ultimately the partnership and the relationship has to work, because there are certainly examples out there where relationships between leisure trusts at the local authority are not good, or go down, and frankly, that becomes a bit disastrous in terms of the provision of particularly leisure facilities. So, you know, that is always important. When you talk about maintenance, repairs, etc., you know, you will know from your time on the board, but I can certainly assure you that at all of our board meetings, that sort of capital asset management strategies is always talked about. Those conversations then go on, you know, between Steve and his exec team and Tracy and her team, and with Newport North, etc. So yeah, I think all of that is, is it all perfect? Of course it isn't. But I think that the relationship which has built up in the 9 years that we've been in existence means that we are able to have very open and honest conversations. And as I say that, I know that isn't the case in all relationships between leisure trusts.
And I think that's what I was getting at really, is it's the more difference when they're selling this.
Chair, if I may, I think we're leisure as a whole across the UK would always say it's a non-statutory service. Sometimes there is lots of funding around. The velodrome was built with 100% external funding, as an example. And there'll come a time where we've got to replace the track. And yes, there will be expenditure, and no, it's not on the bottom line at the moment, but we'll work hard to find sources of funding to alleviate those problems, and where possible in advance of. And I think we're getting stronger. Tracy's been looking after us now for how long? 2.5 years or so. And genuinely, the challenge is better, stronger from the authority. The relationship, sometimes it might seem that we're not on the same page because we've both got the same goal, but we've got, sometimes you just got to go about it in a different way. However, there's a common goal all the way through, and it's to deliver those services for Newport, cost effective, efficient. We can both leverage investment. That's what we'll do. If we've got to chase to the bottom line, we will do it. And you're right. Sometimes I'm there trying to protect the end user, because I know we're going to be stopping some people accessing services when we're incrementally increasing prices by 7.5% or 8%, or sometimes 10%. We had someone quote us last week that we quoted them a 700% price increase. It wasn't. They're actually, for the last 3 years, been receiving the wrong rate. We identified the correct rate in making sure your business is working correctly. And, we're big enough and bold enough to say, sorry, but this is now fair. So we will be fair. And I think what we will continue to work towards, you've seen it in those videos, is inclusion. It's inclusion and engagement, and where we can use the levers that we've got, whether that's for the active travel project that we haven't gone into too much detail on tonight, on momentum, or whether it's the Aspire programme or Positive Futures, they all can have an impact in society, some of which we don't get a return on. It's other departments and other spaces where there's less antisocial behaviour, vandalism, costs into the police service because those young people are not in custody, or X is happening, or Y is happening. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We don't know how we're deflecting young people's career pathways in ways that we're trying to manage. And vice versa. One point I was going to make, Case Station, a big gym, has 11 to 93-year-olds using that space. There's a large number of people with learning disabilities in there shooting arrows in a gym. That's just because we're trying to be inclusive and think differently rather than say, no, you can't come in. We then recognise the impact when people lose access to services. And then that can mean that they lose their independence and they become a pressure in social care. So, Councillor Hughes was talking about, and we think prevention is increasing. We're desperately lobbying and trying to work more in that social care and the health sector to demonstrate the value that we can bring to people maintaining balance, maintaining their well-being for years longer means they're not burdened in other spaces to other services. I think people need to look even closer to what we can do. Sometimes we don't have the answers. If we can put the services in front of other individuals who are looking for efficiencies or savings or just different ways of doing things, we can leverage those Newport assets. So that's all Newport Life has. Our assets are our people and our intellectual property. The asset are the property of the City Council or other people who release them.
And I think it's that added value from that often people miss. So on Saturday, the splash, I think, the benefits to young people might not be able to afford to go anywhere else this summer. what they get out of an event like that, watching people smile, having ice cream, all sorts of things around that. You know, it's remarkable, really. We have so many free events like that in the city, really. And I think, you know, there's such an added benefit to those events, really.
And demand is increasing.
Yeah.
The city is increasing in population. City is increasing, and can only continue to increase with the housing plans. So in terms of then meeting demand on the other side, whether it be for education, for leisure, for living, for business, then that's where getting the right mix, and that's why we're excited to be part of planning strategy.
I think also, just briefly, Chair, if you don't mind, your point about concessionary rates is really important. You know, I'm very proud that we have maintained those concessionary rates right the way through the time that Newport Live has been in existence, but it does become more difficult every year. You know, our funding, sort of our grant funding has reduced, and concessionary rates are a big chunk of our customer base. And the percentages, can you tell me?
70% of memberships on a monthly basis are triggering a concession, which is either age-based, is employment-based, where people are accessing particular benefits. So there are quite a number of triggers in there that 70% of our customers are actually in receipt of a qualifying criteria.
And I think, you know, if we are to play that part in trying to maintain and improve well-being and being preventative and all those things that we talk about in the report, you know, having to increase those concessionary rates is a very, very, very last resort for us, because if you make it more difficult for people who already find it difficult to make use of leisure and cultural services, you're just going to make the problem that we know is already there around poverty worse.
That's funny, you've almost taken the word out of my mouth, because I was going to follow up with what Councillor Hughes just said. You mentioned concessionary rates. Steve, you also mentioned about looking for efficiency savings. And I know in the report you mentioned about various grants being reduced, like the Arts Council, Wales grant, and so on.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how sustainable do you think this concessionary rate model is? And when you talk about efficiency savings, does that sort of imply possible redundancies?
So pick up the arts plan, pick up concessionary pricing. Concessionary pricing was never levied in the build and the commissioning of the Riverfront Theatre. It was in the leisure side of the service. So the pricing around swimming, gym. So Newport Live, if a young person comes in, it's an automatic 50% reduction up to the age of 70. If someone is over 60, there is a reduction of 40%. If someone is someone's in receipt of a benefit, qualifying benefit, then there's a 40% reduction. There's some different rules around clubs and groups. However, nothing applies specifically in the art space other than discretionary, where we look to be consistent with some of the other people's programs. But often the deals we have with agents and promoters will dictate an 80-20 split. Therefore, you're not giving a discount. However, we will give free spaces at times with something called a hint card, which means the disabled person or their carer comes free of charge. And back to efficiencies, that's about squeezing the pips everywhere, whether that's communication with our suppliers, finding sponsors, leveraging the yield on products. So varying our charges across different lines means we can hit different segments. But in redundancies, you know, in 24-25, looking ahead, we have a challenging budget, and it's meant we've had to hold a number of vacancies. We haven't had to make those redundancies. The 22-23 year, Chair, when Newport Centre closed, there were 4 redundancies, 2 part-timers, 2 full-time colleagues, where we didn't have opportunities across the rest of Newport Live and moving into a smaller operation of the station. We've managed to navigate it. there's a significant sums of colleagues who are still funded by grant aid. Invariably, those cycle, you get to a point of looking at redundancy, but often they come back through in another life cycle, and hopefully that's a result of the outcomes that we're delivering rather than just there's money available, because we know the money is now reducing, as you've seen from both Sport Wales, the Arts Council. Sport Wales have reduced significantly the free swimming funding that we get. It used to be a universal entitlement in the entire summer. Now, stations that young people can come to.
I think it's something for health as well. I think I know when you look at me talking to a diabetes group in the week where we've got, I think, probably about 4.5 million pregnant people in the UK with diabetes, where all the people in the group I was speaking to that had been prescribed medication within their first 2 sessions, in 6 months, none have been prescribed to a sports centre. And I think that's something for health to look at. I think that's going to be an emerging growing market potentially, because we know that the benefits of that can be huge for people with that type of so there's going to be emerging markets coming, I hope.
10% of the NHS budget is spent on diabetes treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in those spaces, we're working hard. And Arab University Health Board are starting to consult on a new 10-year strategy.
Yeah.
So that's something that Newport Live are party to. They'll be coming to our strategy event, and we're looking at how our interventions can support their journey. Maybe some of their efficiencies could be reinvested into type of activity we deliver to deliver them savings on an even faster basis. So we can have interventions. And just a throwaway point, I went to the gym this morning and I spoke to a customer. The customer's been coming for a month. He said, a month ago I couldn't get up in the morning without pain. I've come for a month. I bounce into the gym now and I'm not in pain. And he's not an athlete. He's a normal customer who's come in and has now seen the value of moving. And that's it, just moving. And it body thrives on that. So again, we've just got to be proponents for that, using the assets that we've got and becoming even more commercially sustainable, Chair. So efficiencies are not necessary because we maximise occupants.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thanks. Councillor Hussein's been extremely patient online.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you all on a brilliant presentation. And it really opened my eyes to some of the work that you're doing, which we never get to see behind the scenes. You can see how passionate the staff is when it comes to Aspire, and how the students, the learners, the youth, they really enjoy the atmosphere there and the way of teaching than they actually would in school, and there was nothing negative, anything at all from any of the learners. My question, I know you do a lot of work with lots of different organisations, and I did recognise a lot of the names that you're partnershiping with. But my 2 questions are around how do you engage? How does Newport Live engage with the diverse community, the LGBT community, and actually retain that engagement with them? That's my first question.
I'm sure Steve will have something to say on that one, but when you talk about LGBTQ plus community, we hosted the Pride event last year, and that was based at the Riverfront Theatre, and there are a number of other services that we provide on that. Steve, I think you can probably say a bit more around diversity.
Yeah, certainly we will work across the board, not only LGBT, but I'll give you some examples there. Programming and groups using the Riverfront Theatre, but also a number of groups who are using our leisure facilities. And naturally, inclusivity is there. So we welcome all of the customers. We have a number of colleagues who are from the LGBT community, and they also support us to ensure that we are inclusive. As our chair talked about the hosting Pride, there was some learning, there was some cascade of insight in terms of how we best deliver services, but ultimately we didn't have to change anything to host Pride, because I think we were in a good position of being inclusive and looking through that lens and trying to train new colleagues as they come in to understand, you know, the diverse communities that we serve, and ultimately they are customers. But a number of the groups come in and use us as a closed group. Many times they come in as themselves and participate in open sessions.
Thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to mention was Newport is a city of sanctuary, and we have lots of we get lots of people from vulnerable backgrounds, refugees, asylum seekers. How the new arrivals into Newport, how do you engage with those communities, and especially with the barriers, with the language barrier? How do you get them involved with, you know, some of the services that you offer?
Can I cheat and use an example of yesterday?
Please do.
So yeah, yesterday we had at the pool and tennis centre at the Newport International Sports Village a number of young people who are suffering from water trauma. So refugees who are now living in the city, and there were 9 of them who came to experience an introduction to safe use, enjoyment of water with 2 of our senior swimming instructors. And these were the positive young people who wanted to come forward. Now we know there are another 16 who are waiting in the wings who we're going to gradually 4 by 4 over the next few weeks introduce into that. Some of those partnerships are through other third sector groups, organisations such as the GAP. The programme yesterday was our swimming team working with our Positive Futures team, who got the referrals from the GAP and from social services, where they've been working more intensely with these young people. So then by using I call them the boxes, using the facilities that we have and the specialists who can teach swimming, they could then engage with those asylum seeking young people to make them feel more at home in the city of Newport and overcome some of their fears. So that's the kind of work that we're doing. You saw a little bit of the video with the programme that took place in Pill Millennium Centre. So where we've got a football programme which works on so many different levels. You know, it may be engaging with asylum seekers. It could be looking through the lens of, you know, there's a diversionary activity in Pill on a Monday night, which is stopping other activity going on, because we know where those young people are and we're giving them something positive.
See, that kind of feedback is it's great to hear. I did hear something in the grapevine, but I wanted to hear it from you. We need to, you need to publicise some of the positive work that you do. And I know these videos you've got are brilliant, and they just speak for themselves. And I think the work you're doing is brilliant, and just congratulations, and just keep it up. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. I'm really glad that she asked actually about the LGBTQ plus inclusion and the way that you sort of include marginalised and vulnerable groups. One of the other hats that I wear is the LGBTQ plus champion for the council, and it's something that I want to big up myself. So that's already been brought up. But I know some individual sports, so football, do the Rainbow Laces campaign, for example. But what I really want to see is rather than these just individual highlighted events, I want it to be an ongoing theme, an everyday ongoing theme right throughout the organisation. It sounds like that's the path you're on.
I would say that is our core. naturally, with the type of facilities we get, yes, we will host events, competitions, and work with those in sporting context, national governing body. So we could be working 1 minute with football on the initiative, with netball, with swimming, with cycling, and they will all do specific programs. And then we will engage at various levels. We haven't talked much about community sports development and the schools programs. There's a big impact there as well. So yeah, it's something that we run through, but then we pick up on the initiatives that go on across the year as well and amplify those.
It's about ethos rather than just events, isn't it?
Definitely.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. What I used to start with partnerships, and to be cheeky, if you were a school teacher grading a student's work, and the student's work is the partnership that you have with the local authority, what out of 10 would you grade and why?
Oh, good question. We just looked at each other, leaving for the other one to say something. Well, Steve might have a different view. I'll give my view as chair of the board of trustees. I'd probably say 7.5 to 8. And that's because, as I said earlier, no relationship, no partnership like that, it can never be perfect. If it was, we just spend all the time patting each other on the back. But I think that, we have there are a lot of challenges that the local authority is facing, because we all know what the state of the public finances are, and that then winds its way through to organisations like ourselves. And because on the wider picture, it's not just about our partnership with the local authority. So we already mentioned that our funding from the Arts Council has reduced this year. Our funding from the Sport Wales has reduced a small amount this year. So, everybody is feeling that pressure. Is there room for improvement? Mentioned school report, yes, of course, it's always that could do better. Because I think if in any organisation, if you don't feel there's room for improvement, you're lying to yourself. Whichever sector, I spent my entire career in the private sector. If I ever felt that we're doing this absolutely perfect, I might as well have packed up and gone home, because there's nothing else we could have done. So I think it is good, bordering on very good. Room for improvement, absolutely, but between us, there are big challenges that we've got to navigate together.
If I may, I would say there are areas that have multiple scorecards because of the relationships right across. Much as we have one client, we'll then deliver services right across different departments, and some of those will be 10 out of 10. There may be some services that we receive that we might say we think that's a 5 out of 10 in one particular area. However, when you look at the overall, I think we want more. We want to be the best. We want the best assets, best facilities. We want to fix yesterday, we want investment tomorrow, because that's what we do. We're passionate about it, and we want to wow the residents of Newport. That's why you live here, work here, play here. So I think we're probably higher overall, and some of that is because we can demonstrate value. I genuinely say this. I think Newport can, if Newport were to look wider, partnerships between and local authorities in many spaces are relatively transactional, rather than actually then delivering on other people's agendas. So I think that demonstrates that the partnership is healthy and good. We are not purely about bottom line. There's a balance between bottom line financials and there's social value, and that's become more challenging. And I think that has tested the partnership and relationship. And well, if we're going to deliver this, there's an accountability on that side. Funding and management agreement is probably the biggest challenge, because some of that says Newport Life has to, and some of it says the council has to. And if the council doesn't want the money, it has an impact on Newport Life, vice versa. So I think there will always be challenges, as the chair said. I think we're in a strong position with the role I play outside of Newport. I can definitely say, the city is in a strong position with the relationship between its trust and the city as a whole.
Within that, it's obviously positive, and as you probably know, I attend as much as I can with the various events, and including the Splash and that. So you get to see the social impact, especially with those vulnerable groups. So, fantastic on that side. Within the work, has there been any difficult times or challenges faced? And thinking, has there been a deep challenge, and how have you overcome it? And then looking at it, mechanisms, is there any mechanisms in place to say when you're at stalemate, where do you go then?
There can be challenges daily. There can be challenges when assets fail, and where do you turn for the? An example in the year of swimming pool floor failure mentioned in the report, we lost the pool for I think it was 3 days. Whilst we had an interim fix, and the full fix came 6 weeks later. The challenge was telling those people who come to aqua aerobics that they couldn't do it for that period, and they tell you why we have to give it to them, because otherwise their arthritis is going to flare up and they're going to do X and do Y and put on weight. So I can see where those challenges are, but I think that's for us to have our effectively if your normal operating procedures, and then you have contingency plans. I think that's what you have to test. But there are challenges for us, and thankfully we've overcome some major challenges in learning. But I don't think there's anything that's flawless for any period of time as it stands at this moment.
No, I mean, outside of COVID, because, obviously that the leisure sector was the one that opened last.
But we were the only ones who opened.
Correct.
Yeah. The only ones who managed to. We opened as a hospital when leisure was not allowed to open. Then we opened for Olympic athletes going to Tokyo when athletes weren't allowed to be there because sport was their job. So we demonstrated Newport was still open and we could do things. Then we opened the Newport Centre for the mass vaccination and used that as an asset when you may have struggled in some other spaces. And I think it's just about attitude and overcoming the challenges that are put in front of you. And I genuinely think when you work in leisure, you are looking to find solutions to challenges.
Yeah, and I would say that certainly in all the time I've been involved with Newport Live, I don't think there's any time that we haven't sort of faced a challenge head on. Without wishing to embarrass him, I have a view that Steve is a huge asset to this city, and I think it's the reason why Newport Live is as good as it is at most of the stuff that we do, and also why we are seen, I think, as a go-to organisation when there is something that needs, help, when there is something that needs to be fixed. Quite often we're the organisation that does it, and a huge amount of that is down to Steve and his team.
That's right. Some spanners in my bag as well.
Within that context, it sounds like obviously you do a lot of consultational work. How have you kind of built on that within both existing and future projects within the city, such as like the new leisure centre? Has there been partnership working within that? How's that going? And then leading on forward to other ways in terms of looking at ourselves outside, because I know one of the other questions about the leverage on a kind of national level, we seem to be able to have that collective best practice. And just engage about the different types of national partnerships that have been there because of the work that's been done on the partnership between the authority and Newport Live.
So in answer to the question about the new leisure facility, yes, we've been engaged in one form or another pretty much from day one. A lot of that's been led by Steve because he is, I would say, in this city, the expert on the leisure sector. Probably not much more I could say about that because we're still on that journey. And then in terms of the national side of things, again, we are, I think, helped hugely by the fact that Steve has got those national connections whether that be Welsh or UK wide, because of his background within professional sport and within within Paralympian teams or whatever. He has those connections, so that doesn't make building those relationships easy, but I think it makes it easier because it gives us that full middle.
More, you take the facility. Yes, day one, I'd almost say day zero, but you can't always get what you desire and what we've got and how we shape it. And there's some tough decisions the authority have had to take on what goes into that mix. And as you take things out, your efficiency, your effectiveness can change, can get better, can get worse. So I think that is an opportunity for us to embrace going forward, especially, as I said, population growing, demand dynamics for swimming as an example. You have a nightmare on recruiting swimming teachers. Absolute nightmare. If anyone can help with that, that's where that's an appeal across the sector. But there's a huge growth opportunity with the new asset, jobs, etc. Come back to national partnerships. Sometimes that's about being selfless and understanding their requirements. We deliver against them, and then the circle turns. And when we need something, we go back to those national partners, best practice, guidance, information. Team GB, why do they come back? Because Newport smashes it. We make sure that it's right for them. We go the extra mile. How are we bringing other activities into the city? It's purely by being selfless. We'll give examples where the leisure service will get minimal amount of money from bringing an activity or event in, but it could be worth 150k, 250k to the wider economy for those 7 days. So sometimes seed funding into this activity, and that's where your partnership comes in. If you can get someone else to invest and run that event in the city, we don't make the money, but the wider impact it can have leveraging your leisure facilities makes that difference. And I genuinely think, as the chair said, I can certainly say through the sporting lens that if you pick the phone up today to people in some significant locations, they would answer it, and they would know that you're either in an hour of need or you are going to offer them a solution to a challenge that they've got.
Thank you. You mentioned about community and also that, and it leads me into another question about the long-term benefits for the community. How are the long-term benefits for the community being ensured but also monitored through the partnership within the council, and is there any plans in place to sustain those benefits over time?
So monitoring goes on daily, hourly. So we capture information from participation. So when someone makes a booking, someone takes part in an activity, we've got that insight and data, which gives us either participation, we can look at individuals, we can segment them between the data they provide us, male, female, age groups, disability, ability, and other characteristics should they wish to share those with us. So we have that rich information. How we use that then is fed back into different partnerships, different reports on a daily, weekly basis. Some of that will go back to Sport Wales, some of it goes to the Arts Council, some of it comes back into Newport City Council. Some of it's qualitative, some of that's quantitative. There's a big amount that goes back into the NHS as an example, the National Exercise Referral Scheme. How we maintain that isn't written, isn't planned forward as it stands at this moment to say these are the outputs that we desire. I think that needs some work, that needs some shaping. Where we talk about well-being, how do you measure that? I could measure it in terms of participation. I measure it in some of those anecdotal conversations. How is this changing your life? Is this keeping you away from? What can you do that you couldn't do? And sometimes we never know, because often people, when you're getting it right, they don't tell you. So when you get it wrong, is when they come and tell you. So some of those measures actually are in other locations that we need to have an insight. Are we making a difference? Examples at the moment where we're working in active travel might be where we're trying to deflect some of the incidental vehicle use. Are we, by putting programs on in particular communities, taking vehicles off the road and then reducing emissions? We can't count that. So sometimes we think we're doing a good job, but if you held me to account, could I measure it? Maybe not. Now I can measure the number of people who come to the theatre, and I can measure, if we survey them, how they felt afterwards. So that information we can provide. Then we've got to go to more of a macro level with help and partners to see if it's making a difference. Positive futures. We can case study it, we can demonstrate it at a local level. Can we truly say either this is an immense social value that's output from it, or it's stopped X? No, we absolutely know it is. Can't put that nailed value on it.
So obviously with the equity in service delivery, within demographics, as we said, so Newport is a increase in population, specific needs, health needs, etc. What are the challenges being faced and potentially being faced into the future, and what type of opportunities do we have to further and better the relationship to get a better outcome from it?
So I think that some of that will form the basis of our next 5-year strategy. And interestingly, we had our first sort of strategic away day for the board and other partners back in January, much further away than I thought. But interestingly, we invited some external people in to talk to us. We had, I think, more health professionals around the table than we did sports people, cultural people, whatever, because the reality is that as we move forward, and we've talked about it a lot about it in the report, it's how we plug into all of those preventative things that have to become a huge priority, not just for local authorities, but for government at Welsh and UK levels, and how that fits in with social care as well. I mean, I can see. I'm not suggesting we're going to do that in the big Steve's to calm down, but I can see a time in the future where we work closely with social care providers, so we are perhaps sending our fitness instructors and people like that out into care homes, etc. People who aren't to our facilities. I mean, I don't want to get political, but one of the disappointments for me through the general election campaign is hardly any party talked about social care. And for me, it's the biggest issue that we face as a nation. 85% of us will need social care at some point in our lives, and that's got to be partnership led. It can't just be provided by government. It can't just be taxpayer provided. It's got to be how everybody works as a partnership. So I think that a lot of that is going to be really crucial looking forward. And strategy is about a sort of high level approach, recognising the things that we think are going to be important, not saying, I don't know, well, tennis is going to be the next big thing, so let's do something like that. That's operational stuff. The strategic level that we've got to look at is, what are the needs of the communities we serve going to be over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and how do we make sure that we can play our part in providing them?
I think there's a big challenge around what do the assets look like, and what's important to the city and the residents, and what are they telling us and the users. So is that how that informs the strategy and investment into assets? What do we stop doing? What do we do more of? What is the city about? Are we about hosting events? Do we need facilities of X magnitude? Or is it purely about well-being? I know I'm having less conversations about sport and the arts now for the reasons of sport and arts and performance and outcomes and participation and league and beating an X and Y that I grew up with. It's now around well-being, health improvement. The NHS, you go there primarily with ill health versus you come in, we want people in our space investing in their health and good health and maintaining it for longer. One of the biggest lessons for me was the day we opened Station Gym. I had a 92-year-old customer who was dropped off. They couldn't get into the asset, and because there was no lift with an external landlord. But the key thing was that the lady's daughter was there saying, if you don't improve access, I'm going to have to give up my job, and my mum is going to go into care because she can't stay on her own. She only came to the facility to do falls prevention programs and strength and balance, so she could remain in her own home. So we realised the value, the gym where you go, oh, look at this, look at the branding. We're doing more of that to be commercially viable, and we're bringing in more young people, and we're programming that. However, we're absolutely responsible for delivering health outcomes for those people in ways that they don't know, in ways that they genuinely don't know, and that's where we've got to become, I think, more active in that space of preventions and well-being. And we're not connected into those spaces. We don't know where it's going wrong. We don't know where the pressure points are. We don't know what the costs are. I can tell you one thing, it's super cheap leisure compared to social care costs and health costs. And if we can leverage some of the savings there and look at it and invest some of the saving there into here, the subsidy looks like it reduces significantly because the value goes up. There'll be savings elsewhere. We're yet to crack this. We've got to seed someone who believes in these kind of services into some of those spaces that can make some change. But hopefully we're on a road to doing that. Certainly a movement across the whole of the UK, because Newport can't do it on its own. We need to be a collective superpower, and then make sure that we're able to bring that in for the residents of Newport. Again, I will say it does require the investment of the city. We're super grateful for that, for those assets. We'll make sure we do our part, not only to operate them, but to leverage investment back into it to sustain it.
And I know there's about figures and about savings, but I think it's also imperative to kind of remember, obviously, the social impact that it does have and about the quality of life for those individuals. The fact that those individuals are able to have more family life and not, hopefully not in the care home, obviously restricted in that life. So there is a lot of work in that side, and I know you fully approve and agree with that. Chair will be glad to hear. I've only on my last couple of questions on this, I think it'll be a little bit easier. I
was going to say, well, I'm sort of conscious of time, so the question and answers relevant to the that we're scrutinising.
Within the board and the partnership, obviously we've kind of said about the health and the direction moving forward and the challenges moving forward. Do you have between the partnership and also on the board enough people with enough knowledge base, skill base, and actual people that you think needs to be on board? Do you feel that there is, and if not, do you feel that you're readily, actively able to recruit people onto the board?
Yes, is the answer to that. Shall I leave it there? No. So if I look at our board now compared to when I joined it as a chairman board in 2014 and then the first board in 2015, the first board was selected by a council panel. Since then, we've been responsible for, other than two council appointees, we've been responsible for recruiting and selecting. And it's always been done on a skills-based approach. So we've identified where we lack certain skills and try and fill them. Increasingly, in recent years, we've also looked at the diversity of the board. And the board is considerably more diverse now. Probably more diverse, definitely more diverse than it's ever been. But yeah, it's making sure that the skills that Steve-based exec team need, to support them, help them, and be that critical friend of there. So, for example, we've got a board member who, through his professional life, deals on a consultancy basis with a lot of local authorities and leisure trusts, so he's invaluable. We have a sport Wales board member on our board. We have a whole range of skills ranging from finance to marketing, communications.
Which works in the NHS by day and also runs a charity. for you, and she's been fantastic to how we think, but also co-teacher Jew until recently was a member of the Newport University Health Board, so she was on their board as well as our chair. Not talking about himself, has been sat on the board of social housing. So we have people who are looking through those lenses, scrutinising, identifying opportunities, challenges, and challenging us. It's not just about cycling and swimming and the arts. It's like person first, and what about that community or that segment, that sector. I still think we've got a long way to go. Crack health and social care. We can get people seeing the value and advocating, then there's a greater opportunity just to leverage it. It's not the answer to everything. It's not for everybody, but it's certainly something that can give a good return on investment from a health point of view.
And last question from myself there. Obviously, with the social media, things like that, I know it's not a world of sphere that to balance on, but Newport City Council always has a thing about the grass being cut and all the rest of it. And the reason I say that is, obviously, that's this side. People have a negative thing. They like to voice it on social media, etc. I'm just being intrigued by the Newport Live brand. How do you find that being, separated in a certain entity that way? But how do you find people perceive the brand of Newport Live within the wider community?
I think it's changed a lot over the last 9 years, and Steve mentioned I was sit on the board of Newport City Homes, and you can see kind of parallels there. So any organisation that, if you like, has been spawned, for want of a better word, from the local authority, it takes a while for people to separate it from the local authority. Do you know what I mean? So I think, the board member now, I see less and less people referring to us as the council. Not demonstrating that's a bad thing, by the way. So yeah, I think that perception is changing, and I think it will continue to change the longer we're in existence.
I think that's a huge pride in being part of Team Newport, because we can't do this on our own. There's many things that we don't do, that we buy back certain staff agreements. We work in partnership. As an example, whether it be, let's take payroll. We leverage that. We use that. There's no point reinventing the wheel. There's some efficiencies when you put live, but there's also inefficiencies. So I've gone off at a tangent slightly there, but coming back to the brand, yes, there are less. Well, you're the council anyway. Sometimes it's good for us to step away and create that distance, but other times you absolutely want to come back together and say we're part of delivering on behalf of Newport. So I think there's a time and a place for us to have the complete independence that is that charity, that is that trust, which demonstrates everything it needs to the Charities Commission. But there's a time, and you saw it there, where we're working effectively solely on behalf of Newport City Council. We're contractually delivering on service. We have the funding and management agreement, and then we've got Aspire as a contract. Momentum is a contract. Will you please deliver this for us? Not, there's nothing to the left and the right. It is literally a contract. So it's a master and servant as well as a partnership. And it doesn't faze me. I'm proud of someone who's worked for the organisation, and I say it now, I'm not on the payroll, but I work for the board every day. I work harder now than I did when I worked for the council. I used to do some out with that.
I think the other thing that's worth saying around brand, and you mentioned social media in particular, is that one of the things that we've done, certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, is reduce the number of brands we've got on social media. So probably 3 or 4 years ago, every one of our facilities had its own social media account. Yeah. And that became very difficult for people to understand that Newport Live brand. So we have reduced that right down. The velodrome still has its own, and the roof still has.
And the 10%, we've still got too many. We still got to get it down a little bit.
But by and large, we've reduced it down to really concentrate on that Newport Live brand, so people that understanding grows more.
You did say at the weekend, though, there were flash. Something I hadn't seen so obviously in the past. It was very obvious who the Newport Live staff were, the branded, the orientation.
Yes.
And that's quite nice to see.
And we took unification from the riverfront, believe it or not. Riverfront unified everything that we then have done pretty much across the board. from that. So we can interchange people there. And yes, it might say to an instructor on some of the t-shirts, but if you're an F&B colleague, we can employ someone and they can work in any of those spaces because that's their skill set, or that's where they've chosen to work. And they can work in a theatre space, in a leisure space. And again, I think that's very interestingly today. Final thing I would say. I spoke to one of the managers in the theatre this afternoon, put our ticket in on sale. And the tickets for the Olympic camp are free of charge. And he said, you won't believe how many donations we've had. So if you look at what we're doing now, there's a donations opportunity for community arts programs or for asset restoration that we're starting to build these little pots. And I think today alone they had some like £150 worth of donations to what is a free activity. People are willing to fund that because they're seeing value, and then we can reinvest that. So we just got to make sure then that when we come back to trustees, it doesn't get lost. It's a donation for something specific, and then it can go into that space. But building that brand. So that was sports people, as he said to me, sports people interacting with the theatre side and ticketing. Now those people are just going, what's the opportunity? But it gives us an opportunity to cross that. And those people coming for swimming or go to the pantomime and and go, oh, can I do this? Oh, I've got group exercise in the theatre. It's a space, it's a box. It hosts meetings, it hosts group exercise. It can host GPs, it can host anything. And that's how we got to think. You can put libraries in those spaces. Think about those assets and those cost bases that they're there. They're burning money there, but they're providing huge social value there. So from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m, what else can you elicit from that in those spaces?
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, thank you both.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make one final point from me as Chair of Newport Live. We are talking about partnerships with local authority and the Leisure Trust. And I just want to emphasise that it is fundamental to what we do and how we operate. We only exist because of it. We only exist because of that partnership and relationship with the local authority. And I referred earlier to the fact that you don't have to go very far outside of Newport to find where those partnerships and relationships are totally broken down. I hadn't certainly won't be while I'm with Newport Live, that won't happen. I think it's important that we continue with that good, honest, open relationship and partnership where we can be challenging on both sides, we can be critical friends on both sides, but ultimately, as Steve said it really well, we are here to benefit the people in Newport.
Thank you, Kevin. I echo everything you said there. And I was going to round things off by saying actually, I said earlier on I was looking forward to this being a really positive session. It has gone on a bit, obviously, but and I apologise for you waiting so long. But it has just really, it's what a positive partnership this is. And some of those case studies we saw earlier, absolutely just emphasise that. I'm going to hold you just a little bit longer if you don't mind, because we just need to formulate our recommendations and comments and make sure you're happy with those. Tracy, I'll just thank you for your support as well.
No recommendations from Peter as such. Took comments that the committee applauded the presentation, lots of understanding of children's needs, having somewhere they can belong and express their feelings and use energy. Like the idea of in the reporting activities just for women, admiration for the young people and the work with young people from the staff. You can see how passionate the staff are with Aspire, especially. Councillor Hussein's comment about the need to publicise the positive work done with the people in vulnerable backgrounds. Apart from that, was there any recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to the report? So we do keep an eye on the infrastructure and information about that, setting a realistic amounts to make sure that cost structure.
I can't see anybody indicated online, but anybody online want to add anything in terms of recommendations or comments?
Nothing from me, Chair.
I would just like to say keep up the good work.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Chair. I just agree with Councillor Davis, the great work you're doing, and well done.
Thanks, Councillor. I think, yeah. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you next year. Does anybody want a 5-minute comfort break, or do you want to just crack on? We are recording again, I believe. Thanks very much. Okay, well, we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda then, which is the Gwent Substance Misuse APB, Area Planning Board. So, same as before, we'll go on to we'll have a presentation first, and then we'll open it up to questions. So I'll just hand over. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to bring our regional substance misuse arrangements to scrutiny for the first time. This is welcomed, and we wish to share with committee information on infrastructure established, supporting the strategic direction and commissioning arrangements of substance misuse service across Gwent and its links with Newport. The paper you've received outlines this arrangement and specifically highlights the responsibilities of the Area Planning Board and how it supports Newport City Council in discharging its responsibilities under Welsh Government Substance Misuse Strategy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jewett.
I'll just pick up from there then.
you've got the report. It's a very specific report about different outliners around the factory of has said that we have in place for the area planning board. It's never been discussed before, so it's a nice opportunity to bring it. We have a new committee aware, they're all kind of learning along the road together. It's an opportunity to make the committee aware and become familiar with the arrangements that we have in place and be aware of the area plan board itself, because not everybody understands it, not everybody is aware of it. And it's particularly important for Newport to be aware of it because Newport has the role of being banker. So the large amount of grants that come through from Welsh Government amounting to just about £9 million, I think it's about right. And that comes through Newport doors, and we have robust arrangements set up to facilitate that and discharge that allocation through the decision making of the area planning board, which is grant-wide. So it's really important to understand that Newport has a very clear role in that arrangement. What the report isn't, it's not a detailed report of substance misuse services provided in the report, their performance and their outcome. That needs to be a separate report, and I'm happy to respond to that if that's something that the committee wants. But I think first and foremost, we want to take it a step back and just make sure the committee were aware of the APB first. It's also not a report on the prevalence of drugs in our community. Again, that would need to be a separate report which we can provide going forward. What the report does, it highlights the wide-ranging partnerships in place as a result of the area planning board, which is made up of an awful lot of statutory organisations and providers across Gwent that we work collaboratively with. So there are limitations about the report, but as I said, it's very specifically focusing on the side alone that we have in place. I'm not going to read the report for I think you've had it, and hopefully you've had a chance to go through it, but it really quite simply tries to kind of lay out the arrangement of the area planning board, purpose of it, the responsibilities of the area planning board in terms of drafting in those partnerships with our colleagues across the organisations, different statutory organisations per sector, and also the drive to, where possible, pool resources so that we have an integrated and resilient substance misuse provision across all areas. And, you know, all the benefits around pooling resources and being more integrated, you know, less duplication, smarter use of public money, in pathways for services as well, we might want to ask for with regard to that substance. There was a section around legislation, which you'll see in the report under section 2, where we comply with the Crime Disorder Act 1998. And then the report goes down to list various organisations that we would expect to be part of the area planning board. And it's sometimes a bit of a challenge, you know, partners come and go and they will engage in different levels. So it's a bit of a challenge for us on a regular basis, but we've got a very static membership at the moment. As I've said already in section 3, Newport is the banker, but I particularly wanted to highlight that period. There was a little breakdown around some of the funding arrangements and the funding allocation for 24-25. Including a focus on some of the capital funding that has previously been in place. Unfortunately, I think it's right to say that we, from Welsh Government, we do not have any capital budget to bid this year so far, and I haven't heard anything about Heidi. I'm not sure if you have.
There's potentially something coming up in God's 3, but it's unknown.
Right, okay, great. So the capital contributions are really important to help us to provide the venue, make sure that it's for purpose, you know, whether that's through a leasing arrangement or buying accommodation outright. There was a bit of a breakdown on the area planning support team. Now, it's important to differentiate, I guess. You've got the area planning board, which is made up of all those statutory organisations and partnerships. What you have then wrapped around the board is a support team it supports the work of the area planning board, of which Heidi fits in that team, and really the work of the board can't be done without that team, if I'm honest. I support, I'm on the board, and I also work very closely with the support team. The support team and the secretariat arrangement is very much about making sure the APB functions. It is responding to relevant issues and challenges that are coming up. It's also about monitoring and keeping some kind of governance over current provision across grants. There is an awful lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. I'm sure lots of you are aware, if you go to any board, there's an awful lot of work behind the scenes in order to support the work of any board, in order to achieve its objectives and make sure that any actions are carried forward. So there is a bit of a breakdown of the team. Currently, as stands at the moment, we are undertaking a review of that team structure, just in terms of reviewing capacity and whether we've got input resources within that team to support the work of the area planning board. And then finally, on pages 6 and 7, a little bit on page 8, you will find just some very brief headlines on where this issue money is allocated. We've got a very clear adult provision. We have a very separate children and young person provision, and we also have an additional family provision attached to the child and family one. Sorry, the child and young person services. We also have a family provision through that. That's probably as much as I need to say, but you've got the paper. I mean, Heidi, is there anything you feel I need to highlight? I wonder if it's worth explaining Bluebell for you, because I'm quite sure that you were too familiar with that. Would you like to explain what the Bluebell is?
So Bluebell we introduced to the area planning board in COVID. It's a long-acting buprenorphine, so it's a opiate substitute therapy. We've had probably methadone, and this just means it lasts for a month, so we don't have to. It was useful during COVID because it reduced the demand on pharmacies. It reduced people moving around in the community, coming to bases. And also it's just been proved really effective in terms of outcomes for service users. They get clarity of thought, they engage better in service provision, they understand the psychosocial interventions they're going through. So it's increased our outcomes for services who access opiate substitute therapy. It came with a separate budget, which is why it's itemised separately. And we're just, there's an evaluation that's been undertaken by Welsh Government to see how we would use it, because it was introduced in COVID. If we introduced it in normal times, we would probably use it differently. So there's some evaluations to clear there's input into that. And then again, it's about, I suppose, the funding availability.
Yeah, I'm really glad you explained that, because, yeah, as I mentioned before, I think most of us have heard of methadone, we're aware of methadone, but yeah, that's that comparison of the benefits compared to methadone and the increases in benefits and the different way that it works, it's really useful to know. Yeah.
The evaluation is important because it's expensive, but there was huge demand for it. So it is important that we have that thorough evaluation of it, and we have already put in place for that on a temporary basis. But going forward, we need much more of a more permanent direction from Welsh Government about how we can do that.
Good, thanks.
Okay.
Is there anything else that either of you want to say, or
just one that's a small detail in terms of also that Newport being a bank, and they're also the lead contract holder, so they will do all the procurement and tender and manage all that contract, using that through Newport procurement as well, so they play that one.
Okay, thanks.
And all the financial invoices and approval come by me. We'll go on the board. I also manage Lisa, who is the team manager of the substance misuse supporting. Fortunately, she got with us today, and she's got that bereavement. The Harrington Code kindly stepped in at the last minute to support. But I'm completely off my train of thought there now.
Well, thanks to Heidi for stepping in at the last minute, and please give my best wishes to Lisa as well. Thanks. If there's nothing else you want to add, I'll open up to questions.
I think the report was purposely simple and straightforward because I just wanted the committee to understand and be aware of the area planning board. That's everything, and that's what I want people to take away and understand from that today. And then if there are any requests or recommendations going forward, we'll happily come back with more detailed information around substantive in relation to the report, if that's what committee would like.
Yeah, I think sort of looking forward, that's yeah, I think we knew, because this was the first time you were coming in front of the committee, that today was going to be very much an introduction to the APV and how it works and so on, which is what we've got. But I think certainly looking forward, we probably would be looking at more detailed things in terms of funding and the misuse and the figures and so on. But yeah, that's for another day. Okay. I'll go straight to Councillor Marshall. I know he's got a couple of questions for us.
Thank you. Well, my cheeky one, like I did the last one, I don't know if it's too early on the day to ask about school grading and what you give yourselves at the moment with that, but we're not going to give it a grading yet.
Specifically with Newport or the partnership?
With the partnership.
I would say because it's a large partnership, we have all 5 local authorities, we have health, public health, criminal justice. I would say it's both rewarding and problematic. So I think we have great strengths in terms of our commissioning arrangements sometimes, but then in terms of different people's priorities, we sometimes struggle. So like Steve said, I think we'd have multiple school things. Commissioning would probably be fairly robust at some of the joint working and initiatives. We would maybe struggle, and I think there's also always that pressure between criminal justice and health that we have to manage in terms of our different priorities.
And on that premise, how would you try and avoid stalemate? Is there anything within the partnership that looks about how you'd work together and kind of work, have that beneficial outcome there to be in agreement and not to be at each other's ends, or well, this partnership isn't working for us? What's the kind of feeling of that, and how do you get over challenges?
I think by having the Welsh Government strategy, and we don't have a current strategy, but we have key priorities that we're working towards, and those are collectively agreed. So I think it's kind of a strong chair. I see Sammy and navigating through those kind of.
And I think the role of the chair of the APV currently fits with Chief Executive of Public Health. Yeah. That's quite an influential role, and she's very new to the chair of the APV. Currently we have Vice Chair, currently Sally Jenkins, who was going to be departing unfortunately. So we will have a new role, somebody else stepping in there. I think the role of the deputy, particularly the chair, is to make sure that we don't get to that point, that we don't get stale, we don't just get stuck, and we just don't really achieve anything. The port team support the chair enormously in order to make sure that the chair is aware of the issues, the trends, what's coming up over the hill, etc. So that the chair then can think about how to engage the board and make sure that the work continues. I have to say, attendance at the board is really good. It varies in engagement and passion. Everybody's very busy, but we are doing some work with the chair to really make sure that as a board we're working on a clear vision, a clear strategy, and there are some plans in place to have a bit of a developmental workshop session in the autumn to really revitalise the partnership and do it by coming face to face as well. I think the board has in some ways suffered from having all these meetings online. Hopefully they're good for me because I can manage conversations better, but there are benefits, there are obvious benefits of coming together, and we do recognise that that's something we need to pick up. So those relationships don't get stale, they're constantly engaged and they're constantly working.
And then also maturing as well, hopefully in the long run, which also will be beneficial on that side. So within that, obviously focused on about the community involvement within service planning. How and if at the moment will the local residents and service users be involved in any planning and evaluating of services?
Okay, so we have quite robust within adult services. We have a peer academy so that service users can, once they can be at any stage of their treatment journey, but they're trained up in terms of some of that kind of, you know, how to facilitate conversations with other peers and gain their insight, and also just skills in terms of talking to, we have various subgroups structured that's under the area planning boards, again involving them in some of the key work streams, but also when we do commissioning, we do a lot of kind of consultation events, so we get service user voice, but also so we have service users and the peers who've gone through kind of that training program so that they can facilitate all of that gathering of information. So that is specifically in adult services. We also have health board commission services, so we link in with that as well, just to understand the wider community in terms of that. We also, in terms of bases, again, we will go out to communities or community events to understand the theming, and so that they can understand what the base is about and they can access it and see it. So again, we try to facilitate those conversations. And similarly, I would say with the young person service as well, we have a youth ambassador service. So they're there front and centre of all of that service design, anything that we want to talk to them as commissioners about. We can approach them, and they can also, again, just not represent their own views, but go and talk to other children and young people. We engage with youth forums as well, so that it's not just children and young people using substances, but, you know, across Gwent, and we do it across Gwent. So.
If I could do that quite quickly, Barcode, our long-standing partner in Newport, quite actually, but you know, in Newport certainly, they have worked with us very, very well over the years, not just within the arena, but with the wider partnership that I'm also involved in through the service area, in terms of engaging children and adults and hearing their voices, making sure that their views are captured. We get a huge amount of feedback and, you know, good news story. So it's really important that we hear the voices of people who need services before, because if we don't get it right, they're not going to engage. It's quite simple, but that's really, really important. The other thing is whenever when we've gone to commission providers and services, there's always been needs assessments done, and those needs assessments will include consultation, as Heidi just touched on. So I think that is built in and quite robust into every level of how we provide services, and it has to be, it's really important.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, just for potentially, you know, if you wouldn't mind adding for a potential thing for later, maybe in future reports that we can hear about this consultation work and things like that, then about service users, so we get a kind of recognition of what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, so that'd be good.
That's okay on that side. The next question I've got is, before looking on the line, what programs exist currently for community-based recovery programs, and how do they support long-term recovery within the community partnerships?
So in terms of recovery was a huge part of our contract the last time we commissioned. So we have a specific services, and again, I'm largely talking about adult services. It's kind of the engagement and assessment, and then active treatment in terms of some of the medical approaches and psychosocial, and then we have a recovery part of the service specification and delivery. So a lot of that is about we have a team of recovery workers again, and they've established a wellbeing college. So it's and again, we've heard it through the last presentation about getting people into pro-social groups, back out into the community, working with the services and the structures that are in place, so the community connectors, integrated wellbeing hubs, the sports facilities. So again, facilitating that, both peer-led, but also staff-led, and then gradually building up those relationships with the assets that are already out in the community. So that's been a huge drive in the way that we've designed services recently, and we have treatment navigators as well that will help the individual service user access different parts of the community, things they're interested in. And you've heard it from other services. We're a strength-based approach to, again, getting the service user to bring their own assets and the things they can do in a positive way out back into the community. I would say it was a huge drive in a lot of the work we've done recently.
And again, I would stress the link with the wider community resources and services that are there. So while they may be will focus and support and intervention around substance use and how they use that and how that plays a part in their lives, there will be lots of links with other services that can provide a really holistic response to that individual if they want that.
Yeah, the Wellbeing College, for instance, we have obviously the Health Board chair the APB, but also they've been really supportive in terms of the Wellbeing College, the content on it, stuff that the Health Board are delivering. They have the Mellow website, so again, that kind of joint working and people with substance use and mental health issues, either or they can access it. So again, it's just that strength of community and the support that comes with the recovery is really really benefit in terms of that fund.
Do you mind if I just interrupt a second, Councillor? It's just because you mentioned the partners that you work with. This question I'll ask a bit later anyway, but obviously people don't tend to fit into nice neat boxes today. People who've got issues with drugs or alcohol, quite often there's issues related to it in terms of housing or mental health, criminal activity, and so on. So how would you say your partnership working is going with those organisations that are linked to those issues? And have you got any sort of major challenges with those partnerships? Have you come across any challenges now? Have you overcoming them?
Say that it's a huge challenge at the moment in terms of mental health and housing. It's really problematic. We're getting that increased complexity coming through services. You obviously understand the demand in Newport in terms of housing. We've always struggled to, I suppose, provide adequate support for substance use service users and mental health needs. I think mental health services are under huge pressures as well. So there's been a huge drive from Welsh Government to improve those relationships. We have the Divisional Director from Mental Health and Learning Disabilities from the Health Board sat on the board. So we're always doing work to try and improve it, but for the services, I would say it is problematic.
It's really important that part of the work that the team does and what Lisa does, team manager, she makes sure that she's linked in with the wider board and the wider forum where we are aware of or working with and we're being proactive to think about what the gaps are. So whether that's the homelessness task force, whether it's criminal justice board, safeguarding board, Bangladesh Fee Board, we are working very hard to make sure that we're not operating over here in silos, but there's an integrated approach to thinking about how we work together and where we can be as smart as we possibly can.
Yeah, that is what I was driving at.
We don't want to all be doing the same thing within our own strategy with them, because what we know is they all overlap and they're very kind of intrinsically wrapped up with each other. And in the paper itself on page 8, there was a small reference to how the area planning will contribute to the complex needs and the Housing First project. So that is very much about acknowledging, recognising and responding to individuals who do have complex needs, whether that's a combination of substance use, mental health, homelessness. We need to respond to these needs holistically and not in isolation. So they're kind of a complete wraparound. So we recognise that we've got that allocation within that project, and that's something that we need to continue doing, because these are not people who fit nicely into any one box, as you suggested. They are wide ranging, overlapping into so many agendas. It's really important that we include this to all of those agendas.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, Caroline mentioned about the complex needs funding. That changed the relationship because that funding came from Welsh Government and it was allocated across mental health, substance use and housing, so we had to come together. So I think that structural change in the financial allocation really improved that project, and it's really assertive. It goes out, it addresses all of those those needs. So that was a big so that's a big game changer.
That's good to
There was actually a report that just come out. It was commissioned. I forget who was commissioned it, but it just come out, and I'll have to share it with you if the committee's interested. But it's a report, it's sort of an evidence-based report based on the findings in the homelessness sector or the homelessness population in Newport and the needs. It doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know, as far as, you know, people who are homeless tend to have, you know, these overlapping issues, substance abuse, whether it's drugs or alcohol. There will be acute mental health issues as well. That's been long-standing. So what it tells us is that we mustn't take our foot off the pedal. We've really got to think about how we are responding to that, and particularly homelessness is a really, really kind of hot issue at the moment in terms of the complexities and challenges around that moving forward. So we must keep working together, and what that report does is reinforce the need to do that.
Thanks, Councillor Drew. Did you want to?
I just wanted to say that substance misuse is a huge problem in our communities. But individually, this is what Caroline was saying, each person is an individual and needs to be considered. And in one sense, that's why partnership working and using this partner here for this particular person and a different partner for another person is so important to deal with individuals' specific needs, which is what you were saying, Caroline.
And the person at the heart of it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And I probably point this to the cabinet member first of all about maybe accessibility of services. So we're talking about different partners. In your knowledge, what measures are there to ensure that all individuals can access services regardless of backgrounds? Is there any partnerships that you're aware of or issues that can be helped by any partnerships with the knowledge?
Well, there's Gwent Drug and Alcohol Service, which is a Gwent-wide service accessible to all people, and it's the access to that is publicly known, and that's one specific avenue into the Gwent Drug and Alcohol service. I'm sure. Are there any others that I should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, with your respect, Councillor Drew is quite limited in questioning them. So it's fabulous to have him here tonight to support us in this paper. I think, Heidi, you might be better served in terms of that accessibility, because certainly what I would expect is absolutely how individuals know about what services are available and what support is out there and accessible in many formats and forums. And actually the process to access support is absolutely made as easy as possible for everybody. We're not driven by any particular cohort of the population. Our services should be, and I suspect are, fully accessible to everybody. But I'll let Heidi add to that.
Yeah, I would say everything we've done is to try and, as Caroline said, to encourage and increase accessibility. I would say stigma is probably one of the big things that makes access to services difficult. Cultural barriers in terms of, you know, that internal stigma as well. So we try and do as much as we can to, like you said, to get that out in the communities, to raise awareness of services, to work with partners, to sit in GP surgery, go out into local different. You know, I'd like to, we touched on it in the last presentation, of diverse workforce who understands, you know, how to get the messaging and who to talk to in different cultures across Gwent. We do everything we can. I would say stigma is probably the biggest barrier to accessing services.
I think it's rather than a question. I think the next point is an observation from what was just said. I think it'd be interesting to link in with certain stigmas, but also looking at those maybe from the LGBT community, veterans who obviously go through and whether or not there's partnerships that Navigated Veterans Hub and others. We've already addressed about ethnic minorities. Obviously, different ones have different stigmas. They have different stigmas about mental health and the mind, what drugs they're taking, and other adults and things like that there. And I think it's interesting on that side. I think within the remit of like child exploitation and other issues that can derive from this situation, and young carers and things like that. So the whole range of different things that link in with different people affected, within that regard.
I was just going to add as well, one thing that the adults, actually both the adult and the young person service, they're a tier 1 training service, so they train their own workforce up in lots of those different issues that you mentioned, but they also go out into different professions and different communities to talk about, they can do bespoke training, they can talk about referral pathways, they can talk about language to use with people, so that's embedded in both adults and service and children and young people, just to, like I said, increase that from the service.
Within that, it's just a new thing with the guinea pig wheel going around. There's been various social media groups on Instagram actually at the moment about Newport zombies, essentially. I'm just wondering about when you said about the stigma, whether or not there's things about how we as a population generally look at people with issues and about how best we can actually say actually they need help rather than all of the zombies in the middle of the street. It's that type of thing. Is there anything in that regard about how we as elected members, but also within the partnership, how we can improve the look at, because it seems that within, if you read comments, as I know people do, how true they are is a different thing, but people have been bussed into Newport because of the druggies. This is where they get the support.
Yeah, and again, I think it's an age-old problem, and we've tried to promote positive stories in the media. And again, we have, like I said, we have now a diverse group of peers who volunteer, and again, will walk the streets of Newport. Talks about naloxone in the report, but again, being visible. So they are ex-users, they now can promote their own story. We had peers go in and train up magistrates for interest, talk to them about their experience of the criminal justice system, likewise in custody. So I think when we're using peers to talk about their own life experience to professional groups, and again, to get the word out on them in social media and stuff from a peer point of view, I think that carries great weight. So again, there's all of that positive kind of messaging that we're trying to improve. So anything from a Newport perspective that can enhance that.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think in all due respect, that's a massive challenge, because the stigmatisation of what quite a marginalised group in society comes from so powerful influences. So we are just, media, TV programmes. If you look at how stories and presentation of issues around drugs and alcohol, it's always very, very negative. Yes, it can have a negative effect on individuals and their communities, but it's taken in isolation around this substance use. What is missing is the whole context and the trauma that sits behind that individual, which has led them to be in the situation they're in. That whole dimension is missing. It's all negative, and that is a very powerful influence that we are battling with the whole time. And I'm not sure we'll ever get on top of it, but we must keep chipping away at it. And that's why we're highly talked about the sharing of good news stories, peer mentors, lived experience, and having those experiences coming before and talking about it and sharing. That's the bit that we can do. That's the bit we can control, and we must keep doing that.
It is a very difficult thing, counteracting what comes on social media. And if you think about it, the reason that the people are actually posting those issues on social media is a strange one in the first place, because they possibly need some help in the first place. Now, it's difficult to actually educate them. I don't know quite how to do that, but as Caroline was saying, that we're putting out a positive message by peers going around and saying what their experiences have been. And I think that's the important thing. And it is difficult, and it will be just an ongoing thing, but we just have to do that.
The very nature of the people is driven and how they choose to address it and tackle it is going to be a very individual thing. It's how motivated they are, it depends what's going on in their life. You know, it's not something that it can be sick in a certain time. It has to be driven by that intrinsic motivation of the individual. So, you know, we have to be ready. We have to catch them when they're ready. And also then it's the skill of the workforce. And this is where the providers are very skilled in terms of keeping that engagement, because it's so important that when service users finally reach out for help, despite all the difficulties they've got, is that fear of being judged, that fear of being demonised because of what's going on and how their lives are. So the skill of the workforce is so important in terms of how we engage with individuals, understand their trauma, understand their context of the lives that they're living in, so that even if we don't hold them in that moment in time, they'll come back because they know it's a safe place, and that's about that engagement then. So again, you know, it's that kind of two-way thing, isn't it? It's difficult, but that's why the skill of the provider coming to their own, I think.
And within, I think it's important and really good to hear about the empowerment of peer support as well, and about that lived experience, and I think that's very important. But also, it's kind of changing people's minds that are in authority. So it's the fact of, rather than being quite negative and having a stigma of, well, they're druggy, if they steal something, you know, blah, 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 let's lock them up or whatever, you know, and actually looking about that importance of rehabilitation, how can we ensure that support is there, changing on its head, because we don't, you know, what is that person going to be doing in prison? Very limited there. They could be having support outside of those prison walls and actually having beneficial life outside. You know, on that side, I think that's important to note.
You could apply that context similar to when we talk about young children, and we've heard a lot about Aspire tonight and Positive Future. You know, in one way, they are seen as naughty children, but actually they're not. They've got issues, there are challenges, home life is difficult, they've got internal personal issues that they need support to navigate and work through. It's about understanding the individual and the trauma and the context of their life. That's what's important here. And that is our job, keep chipping away so that the response to those people, children and the people involved in our services, they get the right response. So that, and it all leads to the same kind of goal, really, which is actually to work with them and hold on to them for as long as it takes for them to make positive changes around their issues. That doesn't necessarily mean giving up their kids, but it's about then helping them to manage it in a way that they can still function healthily and have a role to play in society.
Very much. I think I was watching a young lad that went to prison over drugs and things like that there, and getting student kind of a gold and things like that there. So there is a hope outside. It's just building up that trust and engagement and to empower them into better things. Definitely agreed. I think the other point as well is just understanding what support is provided to families and also those close to these individuals. How are they included within that treatment and recovery?
There's kind of two different elements. So we've just commissioned a family and carer support service. So that supports families members in their own right. So it could be parents of children who are using substances, parents of adults who are using substances, or just family members or carers. So there's that's a distinct service, and again we try to make it bespoke and separate to the other substance use services, again just to reduce that stigma and to increase, you know, the engagement of family members. So that's a range of kind of initial crisis interventions. There's some psychosocial therapy around that. There's also smart recovery groups. Again, that connection from your peers going through the same thing. There's a real strength in that in that support. So that's one element, but we also encourage within the substance use services as well. There's different interventions. There's social behaviour network theory. So again, that's drawing in if you've got positive family members who can increase your engagement in service, understand what you're going through, and again help through engagement and what you're getting out of services. So that is commissioned as part of the subsistence services. So they run alongside each other in terms of that. And again, just partnership working we do, say with social services around children who are looked after and all of those, we try to reach as many different family members as we can through those.
I just wanted to add there that you mentioned the word bespoke, and that's just seeing an individual as just that, as having specific needs, and so a bespoke arrangement is put in place. And it's just, as Caroline said, like the Aspire programme, that saw those children as individuals. And that's what the Drug and Alcohol Service is trying to do. Right? And if it doesn't do that, so this is a big problem, and you'll just treat it collectively, it's going to fail. So it doesn't. Partnership working, it's really for that purpose.
I think through the coming members, it's the will of the political will of the administration of each of the local authorities involved as well to ensure that obviously that partnership keeps going. I think is imperative.
Thank you for saying that.
Definitely, and to remind obviously of those. Within the next part, it's just a request to add in, is it possible for further information in the future, just for understanding, it could be separate to this meeting and in advance of another, just looking at about like strategic alignments about how, you know, all the different organisations with key strategies, just to understand how they come together, any, you know, things like that there would be beneficial for us to understand. How is that, you know, maintained and stuff like that to show what that direction is on that side. Any notes in relation to joint decision making, how the decision making is. I know we said earlier about if there's a stalemate and stuff like that, it's just to understand the structure and how it will be and you know, moving forward. Looking at measurements, outcome measurements, how would that be measured, evaluated, and how would that be reviewed on that side. And as well about addressing any community feedback, as well as user feedback, service user feedback. So anything like that there would be beneficial to us. But also looking at service effectiveness and sustainability, just to, you know, kind of reassure us that, you know, because I'm assuming a lot of the background to this is grants and things like that there from various providers. Just if anything went wrong, or if you had a 5, 10, whatever it might be, % reduction, how would that affect the partnership? Would that affect it to disintegration, or would you find ways of working together and saying, actually, one partner may be able to say, well, actually, this is more key to our ways. We can contribute a little bit more because we see the end objectives. So it's just understanding about how would that plan be perceived moving forward on that side if possible, and share that with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I can't see anybody online with a hand up at the moment. Just going to pause a moment just in case. No. Any other questions from the floor at the moment?
I'll come in quickly. It's just pointers for next time. I appreciate the calendar is new as well, but I started out my career in substance misuse a long time ago, 30 years ago. But so I think for more for next time, really. I think the reality is, I guess, the majority of people is that some services have got better, some services it's like, you know, taking the cycle of poverty. Particularly challenging problems in housing. Certain years ago, and certainly the case now, is you can spend a lot of money on rehab on one site for many years, and then within 2 weeks still in the wrong type of situation. And we know as well the vulnerable people that we deal with. We know what sort of backgrounds they usually, you know, come from, a little variation, but you know, we know the impact of poverty, we know the impact of care, we know post-prison population veterans. We know where they're coming from. So I think one of the messages you'll probably get next time is really around a lot of effort that side of it, the rehabilitation, getting them off the streets, because we know the benefit they're on the streets, but really it's about the work that provides the services sort of briefly. And I guess most of the studies really saying if you want to stop people at one end, you're much better off investing heavily in the preventative side. And that's where the questions next are.
That's a big question for the area planning.
Absolutely.
Frank, I think they wrestle with the prevention because so much money is allocated to
It's
some place, but it should be that.
Hugely frustrating. I know because you do so much good work in the substance abuse side, and then it's let down by mental health, it's let down by housing, it's let down to so many areas of specialist work. And I think that's the hill to conquer, really. And I think so. I'll be interested to see what we're doing around that preventative housing, that joint working outreach as well. I think is a huge one. I think the speed of that outreach service. It's often, particularly say Newport, often what you're seeing is real delays in that first contact with people in the streets. I think you can speed that up, and then inappropriate housing following that, with people who are in hotels and people are a long way away from their home areas and support. There's lots and lots of things going on in there. So I think and finally, I just say, just pass on my thanks, I guess, to Sally, because everything she touches benefits somehow. I think she'll come wisely. Yeah, she. You can pass on.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo that comment.
Thank you. Oh, you're there, sorry, Sally.
No, I was just keeping very quiet because I think Caroline and Heidi absolutely have this nailed, but thank you.
You haven't said no to being the independent chair.
Thank you.
And just a quick one through the country member, if you would request kindly through the chair. I think with this, as it moves forward, it's important maybe as all elected members should have knowledge of this partnership moving forward, be ideal for us, and whether or not, we're saying about the stigmas and things like that there, and proactively, us in this room will have knowledge, but not the whole 51. So I think it's maybe something, if I can put that to you, cabinet member, as a request to all of council members to open up, just to see how we, as elected members in our community, can maybe have a briefing and just see how it can be.
I think that's fine.
We can, I would be really happy, and I'm sure Heidi and Maria would leave with that, but your input will be available as well. But we could think about your input at the planning session. Well, we can talk about this initially with all members.
If we could arrange that would be sorry to interrupt, but yeah, we arrange that'd be great.
Councillor Davies has suggested something similar with one of her players, very important of early intervention with children, in terms of socialisation, speech and language development, all that. And she's so passionate about it, she's suggesting something along those lines. So yeah, I think it's a really good way of engaging members and helping them to understand and ask questions. If you don't know, ask questions, that's what we're there to do.
And maybe recommendations for us of how we can be influential in our communities.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that.
Thanks for that, Councillor Marshall. That's a really good idea. To be honest, I had a couple of questions myself. I was going to ask about prevention and early intervention, but as it's been suggested, I think maybe that's a question for another day. I just wanted to ask very quickly. This is probably more perception rather than data, to be honest. But obviously, the idea of having the APB and having that economy of scale in terms of efficiency and economy, I suppose that is the word, in economy of scale, compared to the individual community safety partnerships. How would you say that has gone in terms of maybe sharing resources, knowledge, expertise, more efficient use of budgets, and then, of course, the outcomes for the service users? Are you seeing benefits at the moment, or is it too early to say that?
Well, it's been regional for a long time, I'd say over a decade. So, but you can definitely see the shift in terms of maximising your resources, having a workforce that can respond to certain areas, to certain trends that are coming through. You can see that you can, again, we used to have, it was 3 separate contracts rather than 5. So again, you can see that, again, overheads are reduced, all of that. You can see that there's budget savings, and that where there's been duplications of people doing the same things, that actually you can target things better. So that I always talk in the grant wide, because I've really never worked in the grant wide, but those savings and efficiencies were realised, I would say, quite early on. It can be regional arrangements, definitely.
And I also just to add to that, I know and I hear from my discussion with Lisa is that the model we have in front is the up there, you know, it's actually other areas in Wales want to look to replicate a similar integrated model for all the things that Heidi just kind of touched on. So we are seeing a model of good practice. That's not to say it's not without its challenges. There will always be challenges within partnership working, but the model itself works, and how we kind of pull resources, work together, have a shared vision, so that we eradicate things like, or certainly reduce things like, you know, really inefficient use of public money, duplication, you know, inaccessibility, you know, it's about consistency then as well. So yeah,
and it just reduces the disparity of, you know, provisions to somebody and flying grants to get something from the Newport planners or gone.
Exactly.
Expensive, reducing confusion for professionals, referring to, I refer to this number or that number, everybody knows it's one number, you get a response quickly, you get the same things. And I think all of those things, again, were realised quite quick.
That's good. Just an observation. I think in Gwent, we have a kind of best practice of working together for a long time and being, you know, best practice across the board, whether it be education, social services. So that natural kind of organic movement is already there. And we do put a lot of the other areas to shame, if I can say that. We do have that collective working, so it would be beneficial to see if it's already held to best practice now, what it's going to be in the future. You know, and as we build that together, that relationship, that partnership moving forward, you know, we look forward to seeing what comes from it.
That's a good way to run things off. I think I can't see anybody else indicated that they want to ask a question. So a bit like a committee what live, I just hold you for just a few more minutes while we we'll just summarise what's been said and make sure.
Caroline, shall we have the 4 videos now?
That's the next one. We expect 5 next time. Thanks, Neil.
Got comment from Councillor Marshall saying it's good to hear about the impairment of live support. The request for in future reports to hear more about the consultation, understanding that the strategic alignment, different organisations and the key strategies, how they come together, outcomes and the monitoring, addressing the user and community feedback as well, how things are reviewed and measured, the request for a possible all-member training seminar, which Caroline picked up. But then that, was there any other recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to the report? Anything else you would like to see in future reports?
Just a bit on prevention and things like housing.
Early intervention, work on the children.
Any further comments from the councillors online? I think that's a no. Thank you. Thank you much for your time.